And let our roll call reflect that board members Donna Young, Amy McJeffrey, Jeannie Hexton, Carl Zergosa are present. We're joined by our brilliant superintendent, Dr. Donna Lewis, and Tommy Neal, and although not officially started but board approved, Mr. J. Mann. Absent at this point is Annette Sexton-Ruiz, and we'll announce the time when she arrives and joins us. Yeah, I guess before we frame it, do we want to start with, or no, I'll frame it. So thank you all for being with us. It's been a long and amazing week, but wanted to acknowledge everyone's contributions, especially the governing board. We're doing this all as volunteers, and we've had extracurriculars beyond the call of duty. And we went through this in the spring in our superintendent search, and appreciate everyone's dedicated service, and to put forth another Saturday at this point is critical, so thank you. The reason why we're convening today is it's to further develop our relationship from the governing board to, or with, I should say, the superintendent. We'll be looking at things like superintendent evaluation, district priorities, strategic plan, etc. The main thing for me is that we have alignment between what the board wants as a whole and the superintendent understands them clearly, so that we can make sure that by the end of the year, we're all talking the same language, we're on the same metrics, and we know what's expected from one another. So with that general frame, I'm going to hand it to Dr. Lewis to be our facilitator and participant today for this conversation. I hope by the end of the day we have some clear marching orders, I guess, for Dr. Lewis, so she knows what to come back with for our review at a future board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Zaragoza. Well, first of all, I just want to say also thank you to everyone, and Dr. Lugo too, for those extraordinary amount of hours that have been going on. We are one of the few districts that's staffed fully, and that's amazing. Our enrollment is up significantly above this time last year, but not at projection yet. So we still think by the 100th day we'll get there. That being said, I wanted to give everybody a chance to make an announcement. We're not in discussion phase, but I thought let's look at the announcement bubble over here and have everybody go around and pick 1, 2, 4 of those attributes up there. It says, what are your personal reflections on the week? What's something on your mind? What's a point of personal pride, and or what was your style from the last study session? If you can remember, where your predominant, I think it was driver, amiable. Donna, you were all 5 of 4 of them, or something equal, 3 of them. You were 3 out of 4. So that you don't have to remember, but those are just some, I thought, some starter points. So we got could loosen up a little bit as we get started in what will be a very involved, thought-provoking day.
It was a great week, and the lead up to it was fun and busy. Luckily, the air conditioning on my car is fixed, so I could run around with air conditioning, which was nice. Let's see. We did a press release. That was good. That was exciting. I didn't get a chance to see any of the news stuff.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
It was on 5, but it was the opening of Monta Vista, and it was in the morning with kids and parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt
No,
you,
it's
but
okay.
I wanted to say.
When I heard we were on 5 and 3, so that's
Yeah.
good. But I didn't get a chance to see either of them. Let's see. Something on my mind. I think, and I wish I could remember. I didn't know we were going to be talking about stuff like this, but something that's on my mind is the idea of data, and a very well-known education data used to be a guru. He's at ASU and is actually coming out against the use, the way that we're using data and the standardized tests. So I think that as far as education goes, I tend to read a lot throughout the week about education, and that was one that stuck out to me. He actually switched from the committee that he was on into policy because he felt it was so important that we start looking at the connection between Pearson and other testing companies and the money that they make and how it drives policy, and how we really, I think it's an opportunity for us to analyze how we use data and maybe reevaluate our evaluation, if that makes sense, and start thinking about, you know, smart data and how impossible it is to measure teachers because of the so many things that they do in the classroom. My husband's a software engineer, and it drives him crazy how we measure teachers and students because it's so one-dimensional. There's so many things that happen in the classroom that's really impossible. And so, I mean, and he's a big fan of data, and he says until you can get to the point where you are able to actually measure every single student, what they're doing at all times, and what the teacher is doing at all times, you're never, ever, ever going to get good data in a classroom. So to have somebody who's very prominent in the world of data and who actually drove some of that policy a few years back is now doing a complete 180 and saying, I made a mistake and we need to stop all of this testing. Very interesting. So I don't know if that was a topic you wanted, but that's on my mind. Yeah.
Well, I think it was a great week for Creighton, and so thanks to everybody. I mean, it's pretty impressive that got pulled together in such a quick time frame. So I think we should all be proud of that.
A lot of this opening.
Yes, yeah, and I think it was a huge success. It was a great turnout, and it was just really cool to see all those VIPs there. I think it was a nice morale boost, I think, for everybody, but especially Monica. You know, I think it was a great way to kick off the year.
It was horrible. I'm so tired.
We got through the study session like this.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very exciting week. It's just, suggestion for next time when stuff like this comes up, let's have the board study session on a weekend that we're not.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of anticlimactic almost. It's the end of the week and you're going, oh no, not another one. Monte Vista was great. I guess Amy and you did most of the invites for the VIPs. Thanks, it was great. It was fantastic. It was really, really nice and well done. You did a lot of hard work. Okay. As she said, the thing with what kind of style, it looks like I'm a true Libra. I mean, other than artistic, the other three areas were within 1 to 2 points of each other. And the artistic came up like 8 points behind those. So I'm well-rounded. Let's go that way. On my mind. Okay. Part of this week that I had scheduled before I knew all this other stuff was coming through down the pike. I had, Dr. Lugo gave me this lead of Carolyn in finding boxes of historical stuff on Creighton. And so what happened was I got a phone call and it was Carolyn giving this woman my name. This woman is doing, she already did a book. Arcadia Press does them. And she's doing another book on historical neighborhoods in Phoenix. And she wanted a picture of this place that we're sitting in now, back when it was a washroom and all that other stuff. And so Carolyn and I went Thursday and we spent like 5 hours going through all this stuff. It was really, really interesting. Some of the stuff we uncovered and put back. Years ago, we had an archivist. I think that's pronounced right. Someone archivist. And he did things in numbers, like pictures, the same picture, 40 of them, you know, a 5 by 7 or whatever. Anyway, I found the history, found a whole bunch of other stuff, and found a couple of pictures of this place, probably when Creighton took it over, which was 1954. What happened was the neighborhood bought out our federal project, bought out the federal government, so the neighborhood was independent. but you had two parks, this one behind me and where District Office East is. And no one could keep it up. It's a neighborhood thing, but no one uses it, so we sold it to Phoenix, City of Phoenix. City of Phoenix did Billy Squat, and then gave it to Creighton. Because in the 50s, when you had the big expansion of all LCK, Biltmore Prep, all the schools were built then except your Excellencia and Gateway. So we're expanding tremendously as a district. Okay, so anyway, I got the pictures. I went over yesterday and gave them to her. She will be putting them in this picture of, it's on the east side of this building. I couldn't find a really good one on this side of the building, and it will be in a book. Creighton School District will get credit for it.
Cool.
So that's the release. She had me sign a release. I did talk to Dr. Lewis before I did all this. I didn't just, do I have Creighton's permission? So anyway, when the book comes out, she is not taking, her name's GG initials, George. She will be not taking any proceeds from this book. It all goes to save the Adobe building at the fairgrounds, the WPA project. That's what her thing is, her mission. So that's what I did.
Awesome, thank you. So I also, like Beyond Monte Vista, which I thought was a great celebration and has made me really think a lot about our community. I just want to start like chronologically, like Tuesday, picked up a great addition to our cabinet. We had press, of course, for our foreign language program at Biltmore. Wednesday, it was like such a, I can't totally remember what convocation felt like in the past, but there was a lot of fresh energy, smiling faces, and it felt good.
We had all the teachers before when it was part of the board. We didn't have all the teachers. We just had those that were getting awards.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was, I think, like, we're kicking off the year in the right fashion. We got to celebrate our community and the dedication and reopening of the school. And just, I shared this on Tuesday, but I want to share again that in 2009, we struggled. Should we put this up to the voters? I know there were community voices saying, please, like, board, make this decision. We will work hard and see what we can do. And we did it. And then I remember personally receiving some criticism because we couldn't sell those bonds, but that has dissipated. And it was amazing to see the support of other, friendly, I guess, supportive political leaders coming in addition to our community. And it felt different than Papago, like it was more of a Creighton celebration, which I thought was awesome. And then I'll share this. I wanted to get back on the board because I believe in our community. I know that when we're at our best, it's when we're collaborating, we listen to one another, we have conversations, we don't always agree. And just like reflecting on where this board is from where we started, or even from previous boards, like it feels really great to be with this board, to be able to have open, honest, direct conversations. Don't agree on a lot of things, but I think we do agree on the most important things. And I believe that we're doing it collaboratively. I'm really excited for the future of our district, and I think this week is hopefully like, this is what it looks like. It's more, and there's enthusiasm, and we hear in the news about like one or two small charter things, but like our community rallied and we built a brand new amazing facility. Our enrollment is up, and people choose our schools, and they're going to only continue to do that when we keep doing the things that we want to do. So thank you. Thank you. It's really been a blessing to work with this board.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree, and I especially agree with, are we done yet? I have scheduled a 2-hour massage on Sunday. Nobody better mess with it. Just saying, okay? everything's been said that has been felt so good about this week. It was almost like the month and a half of getting to know people and listening to what they wanted and then them saying, I'll do that, and people stepped up. I mean, it was an amazing effort of, 30 people here, 30 people there, 12 people here, just coming together. So it's been incredible teamwork. So if I was to respond to the personal point of pride, it would be the wow of the people. And so it's just been great. You want me to move on? Please. Okay. So as we look at the agenda and frame it, the things that I thought we might do following announcements would be to keep in mind that today's discussion is to determine how you guys want to talk to your superintendent throughout the year to offer comprehensive and ongoing feedback that's honest and transparent, and we're going to do something about it because we're a learning organization together. Some of the frame ideas I came up with and talking actually with you yesterday, but I don't know if I got it right, so there's a blank frame here if we want to put more stuff up. All right, but this is certainly the thoughts that popped in my mind. That today we want to review, modify, clarify the process for evaluating the superintendent, the district progress, and perhaps the board self-evaluation, as you guys agendize that. And then we want to begin the development of district goals, or at least establish some big rocks. Maybe 3 to 5 big rocks according to the policy, and establish a baseline for growth. And maybe on the heels of your comments about how on earth do we measure everything, how do we establish at least a baseline this year? Because we really are at baseline information again, because we've had such a big change in the state testing, but maybe that's not the only measure. Maybe we have surveys, maybe we have event anecdotes. There's all sorts of ways to discuss feedback.
Yeah.
So those are the frames in my head. Are there other thoughts that you have about framing today?
I think it's just important to add in your first bullet, like what's the purpose? I think we've had different understandings of the language to like the evaluation or to accountability. And I think some of these terms are packed. So I think it's important to just share like the purpose for having a superintendent evaluation exhibit, for example. I think the purpose question is super important for today.
So we'll leave it blank for now and we'll formulate it throughout the day, or we can spend time on it now. Which is your preference?
Also timelines
Okay.
with the evaluation and we can talk about it a little bit. Right now, in my opinion, I don't feel it's a very good time when the superintendent evaluation is due. And also with that, not only the time frame that the superintendent evaluations are done, but doing it whatever's decided by all, monthly, every other month, every 3 months, every 6 months, when it's done informally in an executive session, whereas the superintendent and the board talk.
Okay. That totally works. Others?
I'm not sure we'll be doing this, but just want to make sure we kind of look at the strategic plan when we talk about goals and how that, works into it, so we're not reinventing the wheel.
I think when I did my brief analysis last night, I saw amazing alignment.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really naturally aligned, but needs to be tweaked and constantly considered. So we have some strategic plans. These drafted the strategic plan in your packet for you as a frame.
And I just want to add for the record, please note that I got board member net session release is join us at 8:51 a.m.
Good morning.
There's coffee, donuts, and back there's
Fruit and muffins, water, and we have an agreement to take care of our bodies when we need to, if we're cold or hot or need to use the facilities or we're thirsty or we're
Can we
hungry.
have more comfortable chairs for the day?
We will move a chair for you. Absolutely. Just take care of your physical needs. You know where a chair is that you want?
I'll get it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so what we've done so far, Annette, is we did a little check-in on how did we feel the week went? What was something on our mind? And not to put you on the spot, would you like to just do a check-in to say how you doing?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Both events we attended were excellent. I expressed to you that I thought we probably should have had Spanish translation in the event.
Great observation.
But other than that, I think everything is awesome. So,
Anything on your mind that you want to share? Okay. All right, well, we'll leave this blank frame up here, so if we want to add more, we can. Does that feel good? Okay, so the first thing on our agenda is to review policy CBI. And being the crib notes teacher that I am, I went ahead and did a little close reading to help us with that. So here's the actual document. And the beauty of it in this year for you is highlighted in yellow if you choose to see it that way. I have no, I'm going to sit down now as a superintendent. I have no vested feeling one way or another, however deep you want to make this. So let's just take a minute to actually read the document. It's in your folder if you prefer it that way. And then I'll help you cheat a little bit if you like these crib notes. These are some of the major bullets from that document over here. So basically it says we'll develop 3 to 5 I will bring you 3 to 5 proposed goals. So after today's discussion, it'll really help shape what those 3 to 5 goals should look like. Mm-hmm. And then sometime before December, we need to have an executive session. And it could be next week, or it could be, November 30th. You don't want to do another thing? How about tomorrow? What are you doing tomorrow?
We don't have time for close.
Yeah.
Lucky you. It's something on the table.
Okay, on a gurney. All right, so we in the before December sometime executive session that we'll set up, you're going to want to be thinking, however, did we shape this process? What formative assessment, which is kind of the language you were using earlier, which is I want to have some regular informal conversations, just chit chat, about how things are going and what needs to happen next. Mm-hmm. We want to review the job description as it's written as an anchored document, and we want to highlight the goals in that discussion. So that makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. That's exactly what the document says. The document further talks about June being a final evaluation. However, the yellow highlight gives you the opportunity to, if the superintendent's contract is in its first year, the initial evaluation will not be a comprehensive evaluation. I welcome a comprehensive evaluation. Just want you to know that, okay? So there's no issue there with me, and the document continues to read, but will be used to allow the board to communicate its perspective on the superintendent's performance to date and allow the board and the superintendent to communicate on performance matters. Then it later talks about if it's in the first year, it'll be in November. Let me read it to you. Additional first-year evaluations may be completed by the board at the board's discretion or upon invitation by the superintendent, which I would invite. However, the first fully comprehensive evaluation will be that which occurs in November of the superintendent's second year. So it kind of buys everybody time if you want it, but we can insert those regulatory conversations so there's not this sudden, well, we have to wait till November to surprise her with feedback. Mm-hmm. So I think we've got a really nice map here. And I'll just bring you back over here to my crib notes. So June will be the final evaluation normally. Mm-hmm. The first year not comprehensive. We have room for interpretation for that, in my opinion. November of the second year fully, and other observations, critical dates, or processes, which is some of the things we brought up over here. So that's just orienting you to the policy that we're supposed to follow. What do you want to say about the policy that you read that was interesting to you? All right, that's how fascinating that was.
Yeah.
Okay, yay.
No, I had some comments. I was trying not to be the first.
Okay.
Like the language reads, the superintendent shall provide the board with 3 to 5 proposed goal areas with action steps for discussion and mutual agreement. And what I'd like to do is I still like find value in us collaboratively identifying the areas. Like I think it's important for the superintendent to propose action steps, metrics, but the goal areas themselves, I want to be a part of that when we're doing that. So it kind of doesn't necessarily fit the language here, but I like that we're doing it. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think we talked about being collaborative, doing this together, and I want to continue doing that. I also think in terms of timelines, a couple thoughts. Number one, like comprehensive, I don't know it really what the board was thinking at the time, but I do think like what I saw in the exhibit from last year was 3-year benchmarks under each of these goal areas. So for me, comprehensive, not comprehensive, I'd like to see that we have a revised exhibit that reflect our areas where the superintendent proposes those benchmarks and action steps. I think action steps probably are strategic plan. I think they manifest there. And I think year 1 is about establishing these baselines and developing the plan. I think we saw that last year, but we didn't get all the way to those actual plans. So I think, I don't know what that means in terms of comprehensive, but I still want to see that and that we're marching in that direction. If we don't have those actual goals, we still need a plan. Like we need to give the superintendent time to fill out the organization, do our own analysis of where we're going, and propose how we're going to get there. Also establish that baseline. So I think those are probably year 1 type of goals that I'd like to see. And in terms of no surprises, and I probably picked this up from either Superintendent Jeff Smith or Roger Freeman, but I think it's super important that every year, this time of year, maybe like June, July, August.
Separate from the rally and the.
Separate. Where we like reevaluate and establish these the goal areas, right? And then like kind of like on a quarterly system, superintendent lets us know this is where we're at. So there is a regular check-in. It's transparent with us and the community, and we have regular times throughout the year to give feedback on where we're at. I don't want it to be cumbersome where we do it all the time, but I think quarterly makes sense for our size of district. Those are some initial thoughts.
I would like to bounce off that. I think it should be, I mean, when you're reading this, it's kind of like, well, there's the evaluation. I want the evaluation to be more of a living, changing document, not set in stone. The goals will be changing when you accomplish, or we feel that one is accomplished or something else comes. I'd like the board to more or less use a study session to every year just to work on the superintendent. So it changes year from year. The first year I was on the board, part of the superintendent evaluation was about building schools. The school had been built 5 years before. How am I supposed to evaluate something that not only has been accomplished, but it's not in the works now, and it was done 5 years earlier?
Yeah.
So, whereas if it's a living document where it changes, some might not change, you know, even if it's accomplished, it's so important to keep that level up that it stays the same. That's fine.
Yeah.
It can maintain so that level is stayed, you know, where the board feels that it's a very high priority. For example, community input or something to do with the community. You know, it might be accomplished, but the board might feel that it is needed again and again. But they have the opportunity to change it yearly. And I'm not talking about changing the whole document just parts of it.
I totally agree, and I think this is when we can evaluate and reflect on, were these the right goal areas? Where are we today? Things do change. I know, like, once we have this, like, there are contractual things that change the nature. So I think if we set them up on a yearly basis to be living, where we reflect and refine and recommit, I guess, that feels right. Especially like last year, I think everyone, and we'll see how this board feels, and you feel, of course, as superintendent, we're addressing retention, and maybe we still are, maybe we're addressing it a different way, but I think what I saw in the old document didn't really fit necessarily what we can control. So I think that
Or what
flexibility.
she can control.
That's right.
Right.
And so that flexibility is important. I just don't want it to be like we're changing it every couple months, because it's a 800 staff, 6,500 and growing students organization, and we definitely need those priorities and those North Stars. But I definitely like the opportunity to
I'm not
check this.
thinking about changing it every 6 months. I was thinking of looking at it yearly.
Perfect.
Do we still have the same goals after the evaluation?
Yeah.
The formal evaluation? Then do we still want to work on this goal with the superintendent, or do we feel there's a stronger goal that needs to be addressed? Or maybe she comes with different goals because she's completed some or gotten as much as can be done on a goal, right?
Yeah.
Not all goals can be met at 100%, right?
Okay. Okay. So the roll up your sleeves hard part of the work today is now ready. We're ready to get ready for that part. Ready to roll.
I thought that was waking up.
That was the easy part of the day, despite the week. So let's take a look now at the exhibit. Now the exhibit is the actual tool you've used in the past for the last evaluation that you did with the former superintendent. It's a 27-page document. The majority of superintendent documents out there are somewhere in the 3 to 5 page range. Doesn't make them better or right. This one is thorough and truly comprehensive because it was obviously driven by research and includes many, many powerful aspects surrounding the ISLIC standards that were developed by the chief state school officers. So just as we kind of, what in the classroom we call chunk, as we chunk the document into something that's manageable, let's take a look now at your current tool, performance-based compensation review. So on page 1 is a summative evaluation sheet. It's like the math sheet at the end of the day. So by the time all the different components are put together and proportioned out and points are given and ratings are assigned, a math sheet gives you a total at the end. So that's your first page, is your summary sheet. Your second and third page you've entitled Section 1 Student Achievement, and it accounts for 45% of the total rating review practice that you have right now. As some of you have already pointed out, the student achievement piece, it may be obsolete in some places, and we don't have 2 years worth of baseline data yet. So this one's going to be an awkward one for us to work through today. Just want to put it out there, and I think we should spend some time on this particular piece because it is obviously Section 1 for a reason. It's why we're here. Pages 4 and 5 are the processes and timelines and components articulated out, almost like a definition of what's coming in the packet. Pages 6 through 10 are Section 2. Here's where the district goals were articulated. So, for example, you had the retention piece in there. You might want to work at 2 healthy organization has been some of the conversation we've had up on the dais recently. But the goals might relate or already do relate to the strategic plan. So we'll take a look at those. There is a place in this section where the superintendent does her own rating, and then the board does a collective rating as a body. Okay. Those 2 ratings are put together, and it tallies to 35% of the total evaluation system.
Wait, so you said that the two ratings are put together? So however you were to rate yourself, it averages in, so when Hilda does the calculations with what we all say, she includes yours? Or you're just saying that this is, because I always thought that this was a suggestion, like this is where I perceive myself to be,
Right.
and not necessarily,
I think you're right, because does anybody know what the number 63 means, or 62, or, Hilda, do you remember what that is?
How many points
that-
are for that section?
For that, so that's the point, and it is only under the board section.
okay,
So there is a place for the superintendent to contribute to the rating, but it doesn't affect points.
okay, and then like give their, like these are examples of why I gave myself an 85% or
So-
whatever, so.
Whatever, if I said I was commendable, or I said I was in progress, or I
Right.
said I wasn't doing this at all.
Yeah.
And here's what I need to do next, and
Okay. Yeah,
here's
just
where I
wanted
wish
to-
I had done more, or like whatever. You'll hear that evidence from me, and then you can make a decision, go, yeah, but you did these 3 things, or you sure should have done these 3 things.
And that's always
So the
helpful for us.
power of the points is still in the hands of the board. But the goals is gonna be another big chunk of our day today.
Mhm.
Okay, then on pages 11 through 18, you have section 3. And it was about the 6 ISLIC standards, and you had 32 indicators under the 6 ISLIC standards. Does that make sense? So if you were to look at page 11 through 18, there's some descriptors about role clarification, what the definitions of the rating system is, what are the general responsibilities is one subsection, and then there's the 6 ISLIC standards with 32 indicators, where you're supposed to rate sort of behind, middle, low on each of those indicators.
Yes.
And you come to consensus on what is now on that section, 15% of the total document.
Why don't we come to consensus? We all put our scores, we talk about it, and then we still put what we individually fill in and gets added.
Oh, okay, well, that's good to know. So we might want to clarify some of that too.
Yeah.
Want to pause any more on that one? Are you thinking?
No.
But we're gonna spend.
Yeah, we're gonna spend time on each, okay. So I'm just giving you an overview. On pages 19 through 27, that's called section 4. Some of you have mentioned, is this a duplication, or is this actually the one and only thing we want in the entire document?
Mhm.
So you've gone kind of on both extremes of whether you want only section 4 or get rid of section 4, or what's the balance. So under section 4, it's called overall consideration of the 6 standards, and you're looking at the superintendent's knowledge, her disposition, and her performances in those areas in a general kind of catch-all summative narrative way. And that's 5% of your document. My hunch is, when this was created, that this became kind of a safety net in case the 32 indicators didn't get to something you wanted to talk about in the feedback.
It was the 33rd or 34th indicator. I don't know. It wasn't on the board.
Right, but it was probably a catch-all safety net. Because it's 5%, it's a duplication, and it's a, gosh, we might have missed something statement, is what it seems like to me. So I'm going to take us over here now just for an orientation to the standards, because my hunch is throughout the day, as we have various conversations, you'll find, wait a minute, that lives here already. Or what you brought up on the dais a couple of weeks ago was, how can we possibly focus on all 6? What if we focused on 2 this year? That's what you said. I'm not saying that's what I'm advocating. I'm bringing back to you what you said.
What, coming from a non-educational background, what exactly does this stand for? It's one of those.
It's the I have it. It's written out all the way. I have to
So I
look it
don't
up.
feel so dumb.
No, no. And we use ISLIC so much I forgot, but I think it's interstate or intrastate.
Interstate school leaders licensure consortium standards.
That was
It's for all administrators, correct? Like principals?
Yeah.
When you go through your certification process?
Yeah.
I proofread somebody's whole like kind of capstone thing that they did, and they basically had to go through all of the ISLIC standards and say how they were meeting those standards. So are you guys tested on those? Is that part of you when you if you go through the certification process?
Not per
Not like
se,
that.
however, there are 2 or 3 body there are documents that measure failing schools out there, and they do tend to center around these components. So for example, the standards and rubric at the State Department, when they were doing solutions
visit the solution help or assistance used 4 of these components. When you take the AEAP test to get your certification, elements of these are always blended in. I don't know that they're one for one, but.
So these are the 6 standards that basically the evaluation of any administrator is. So if you're really good on all 6 standards and you're walking on water, which is really hard to do because they're so different and so all-encompassing, for somebody to get a really high score on our current, they would have to be Superwoman or Superman.
Yeah.
Which is virtually impossible. And,
Yeah.
you know,
So I think it's an important time to ask this question, and I'll take your lead, but I'm going to propose the question. But I think we have 2 things at play here, right? There is evaluation of superintendent, and then there's also the goal attainment or performance pay purposes, and they're in one document. And if we use the same document for different purposes, this is where it can get confusing and cumbersome and impossible. And I just hear like this for like with teachers and other educators. So I think we should be clear on what it is that we want this evaluation document to be. Right now, we use it for 2 purposes: evaluating superintendent and paying for the goal attainment for the for performance.
okay.
Because if we're
To
like,
be the devil's advocate,
sure,
if you're suggesting separating them,
I'm not suggesting it. I say we should just acknowledge that there are 2
right,
purposes, 2 different purposes for this one document.
right. If you,
I just think it
If the
informs
board-
how we think about what we adopt at the end of the day.
yeah, if, I'm not suggesting we separate or keep them together. I think it was a fail-safe years ago, because if you had a board member who didn't like the superintendent personally, even though the superintendent might be fulfilling his or her job, the other 4 members would counterbalance, so they might not get the highest rating, but they get some pay for performance, as opposed to maybe the board deciding on the pay for performance as an entity itself,
Mhm.
where the board could be persuaded one way or another that isn't on his or her superintendent's work in the past year or evaluation. So I think it was a fail-safe,
Mhm.
so personality conflicts can come into play.
Mhm.
In other words, it was more objective rather than subjective.
Well, I mean, what we have right now is very, like, most of the document is objective. Like, there are clear measures that we are supposed to put our numbers, tie our numbers to. So I like those elements. I definitely, like, here's the thing. If we're doing, like, this is what I've heard in some of the circles I run in. If the superintendent is doing all of these things, then why don't we don't need to talk about them, because they'll show up in goal attainment. So in some systems, they just look at that. In others, they just look at the goal attainment, student achievement. I think this was like, let's balance this out. It's kind of like with new teacher evaluations. Let's have observation and data, and not just one set of data, but hopefully in our best form, multiple data points. So I like the larger comprehensive piece. I think what we have is it's too much. And what I like about it, what I like to do is talk about what is the purpose, what do we really want to accomplish with this. We can use it for multiple purposes, but we should just be clear in our heads as a group, because it'll influence the weights, what we highlight, and those things. Yeah.
I have an idea. I'm looking at the 27 pages and looking at, I think it just seems like there's some repetition, obviously. But I'm looking at the 6 ISLIC standards, and they're pages 19 to 27. I'm wondering if they could be
as part of this tool, eliminate it. And if there's anything that's in the ISLIC standards that's not addressed in sections 1 through 3 or pages 1 through 18, can it be put in? And that might, that if we feel like it's necessary, because I feel like we're having, we're having all our things in the other sections not.
So we might be jumping ahead, right? But
It's okay, because you're chunking the information
Yeah,
and trying to categorize.
So let me suggest this, right? If we agree on what the goals are, here's the thing, at the end of the day, crazy stuff happens, right? Like, we might be rocking and rolling, and then there's a catastrophe, and we're not gonna hit these things. And that could look like natural disaster, the legislature, like any flavor it might look like, which is why it's also important, like, to me, like, this stuff is important, but I don't really care. I don't know if that sounds right. I'm not really interested in this. I'm interested in the goals. But I also want to make sure that we're not penalizing superintendent for circumstances beyond our control. Like, maybe she's doing all the things we think should be done to get to the goals, but we just didn't get them for one reason or another. So I think it helps balance it out and make it a fair, more fair process. But to me, like, my contribution for this conversation hopefully is more on the goal areas, and I'm open to ideas on how we rebalance this.
The standards, I mean, when Dr. Lewis took this position, she was expected to, that those standards just look like collaborating with family, ensuring management, and the equity one, and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
That is more or less the job description.
Yes.
So I don't know. My personal opinion is, I think it needs to be simpler. I mean, y'all might understand this, but you hand me this, 27 pages. I'm not from an education background, and if I was just elected and I get it 3 months later, how can I evaluate somebody for a whole year when I wasn't even here looking at their performance?
But I think that's where the goal areas and where the metrics that were set in collaboration, superintendent proposed them, the board approved them. We might not know how to evaluate these pieces if we're brand new,
Right.
but we can look on the paper like, okay, like, the students achieved these things as projected. The community, like, whatever the goal, district goals, priorities might be, we did these types of things, these were the outcomes. I think we could still, as laymen, because we're all laymen, like, in this conversation, evaluate that, I think, fairly objectively with the data that we've been given.
I think the superintendent's evaluation should be simpler. To be on this board, you don't need a high school diploma. We're all college educated here, but it's not a requirement. And to hit somebody with an evaluation like this, it can be very confusing. I think the goals should be specific, like any goals, but they should be simpler, not all this boxes.
So what that might look like for me is we agree on like the goal areas under student achievement and the district goals. And if we wanted to create some fail, like, it's okay to fail, you've done these things, like, for whatever reason they didn't work out, superintendent might propose, this is my contribution from Tuesday. Like, in this year, it's my first year, I'm gonna get to know the organization, I'm gonna, like, establish the baselines. I might need to really bring standard 1. I don't know. I haven't.
3 is actually typical for a first year.
So I'm gonna bring standard 3. I'm gonna highlight that, and, like, maybe we're not gonna get the goal attainment, but this is how I'm spending my time, and that's our opportunity to not look at 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, but really just dig in. And then when we come back next year, right, to go to the next step, I really need to, like, build up 4. I'm just throwing out a random number, but my point is, we can make it simpler by focusing on the outcomes, empowering the superintendent to tell us the inputs, and even, these are the standards I'm going to put on display this year.
So limiting, perhaps like we look at 2 and 3 for this year, or whatever.
Well, the superintendent would tell us too,
Right,
like, to
right.
get to whatever it is for year 1, I'm really gonna need to emphasize these ones. This is how I'm gonna spend my time. I'm very transparent. This is what I'm gonna be doing. I want you to take notice of this, and I want you to give me credit for it. Great.
So now my
So I
question,
think that simplifies it some.
I've gone to superintendent evaluation breakout sessions for years because I didn't like what we were using before.
The 5.5 to 10.5.
Yeah, and I've never been happy with the superintendent evaluation. Maybe I'm just a pain in the butt. But anyway, some of them presented the idea. Very simple. Is your superintendent doing their job? Yes or no? Yes. To long drawn out things.
Uh-huh.
But
And what was
when
the
it
purpose for
comes-
the evaluation for those board members?
what?
What was their purpose? Was that for performance pay? Was that to keep
They
the,
never went into that, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's been years, but the idea of, is the superintendent meeting your expectation? Are they doing their job? Is he or she fulfilling the needs that they put out? And real easy, if Dr. Lewis wants to work on standard 3 and really focus on standard 3, and we agree, is she doing that? You're not going to get 100%. And I do,
Yeah, right.
I do
and we should expect them
object,
to.
yeah, but I do object, on the marking somebody with, their 50% or something like that, or 100%. No one is going to get 100%. If they do get 100%, one of the standards, something else is not right.
So for me, like, this is where the purpose is, right? Like, if performance pay, the pay is on the performance, which to me is goal attainment, but for you all, you might have a different idea for it. But I think that's what that purpose piece, the evaluation tool itself, Dr. Lewis, for me, is a communication tool to ensure that us as a governing board and the superintendent and cabinet are on the same page. Like, we're marching toward the same priorities. And the thing, like I said, is I want to make sure we have the same goal areas. We've talked about those metrics. This stuff, like, layman, I don't know. It's not important, not as important to me. But I want to make sure you can get your points. Not all or nothing type of circumstance.
I'm just imagining, that you said that typically for a first year superintendent, you focus on standard 3. So I guess I like the
Not at the expense of the others, though.
of course, right?
Yeah.
We can change that.
So I guess my question is, when we're thinking about reworking this tool, do we want to, would that be part of it? Will we come to agreement? Like, okay, so we want you to focus on 3 and let's say 2, because you're new and culture and blah, blah, blah. I'm just throwing it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Would we then keep these rubrics that are here?
Mhm.
And then, maybe
And then next
eliminate the
year,
other ones and then next year we'll reevaluate
Shoot it
again?
in gray, like, we're not supporting those,
Right,
Just as I weigh in on this,
maybe.
there's not one of them up there I want to give up.
of course.
Just not one.
Yeah. No,
So to cycle priorities makes sense.
Mhm.
To say, she's really going to focus on X, Y, and Z, not at the expense of the others, but this is a year of auditing, or this is a year of reestablishing baseline accountability or maximizing resources,
Well, it was
which is kind of I'm not at my 100-day yet,
Mhm.
but my hunch is when I give you a 100-day report that I'll be looking at some tightening up things. That's very standard 3.
right.
But it is clear already, even from the first 2 months we had,
there's no way standard 1 could have been omitted. You know, standard 1 and standard 2 was very rolled out in the first 30 to 60 days. Not fully rolled out, just, you know, unveiled, if you will, to a degree that the type of learner we're gonna be working with and the way we're gonna focus on learning.
So
I
for
like,
me,
I like it the way it is. I think the numbers get changed. We change the priorities that, or but that's my.
And I feel like the district standards are kind of redundant, and I think section 4 feels a little redundant also. I mean, I see the point of not wanting to penalize her if one of the, like you said, something catastrophic happens and it's impossible to reach a goal. And now we're stuck, you know, evaluating you on this goal that's impossible to reach. But there is a comment section in there. I mean, so that it becomes kind of subjective. I mean, you agree with the circumstances and that it's impossible to reach the goal, so you evaluate based on that. I think these are really good. The standards are a good tool when you're thinking about if she's following them, because I think they are a given. Like, yes, this is what you should be doing.
Like said, it's a job.
Yeah, so it's maybe a good tool to study as you're evaluating, like what is it that she's missing? Is there something, if you go through all these and you know, it's almost like this is constructive feedback going forward. You're missing this one part of the ISLIC standard, but I don't think we have necessarily to go through and do it for every single one.
Well, I just want to name what I'm not hearing too, is no one's talking about this as a like a hiring type of evaluation. I know that's a concern for educator evaluations in general, but what I get the sense of, and I haven't asked the question directly, is this is a communication tool. This is about priority alignment, but we're not talking about it as you didn't succeed here. This is the evidence we need. You're out, right? Does anyone think that's the purpose of this? Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. The superintendent has the unique situation of having a contract, which is its own binding entity. So this is a communication tool. The caveat, though, is the pay for performance piece.
Right.
So unless you untangle those, which I'm not so sure you need to, you just need to decide if you want to. And how, you know, if you tie it to overall good management, good leadership, and then overall goal attainment, and then overall how the kids do, and then how happy are the people. All those goals are kind of roll into job well done.
Conversations I've heard from board members in the past is base pay, that's this. Performance pay are the goals. Right? I don't know how you all feel about that. That seems to fit well for me, right? But
That's interesting.
never really entangled or like had a deep conversation about it.
Getting back to what you said before, how long is the contract?
3 years?
The superintendent has 2 years.
I mean, ultimately, as a board,
So the
we
board,
can make a decision to terminate the contract. We'd owe money for that, and then we can find another superintendent. So, like, my point is, like, if there isn't, I don't know if there's a connection to the evaluation and that in policy. I just wanted to at least broach that topic. I don't view this document for those purposes in this
right,
process.
no, I understand.
But some people do.
Makes sense. I'm just wondering, what does a board do when, say, they have a superintendent that they're not happy with, not that.
No, you gotta talk about it.
Yeah, so what is the procedure then? Would it be, just not renew the contract or?
They can
But
do
it
that.
wouldn't be through the evaluation process at all. I mean, I guess
They
they can lower
usually-
scores.
I mean, looking at our neighboring districts, they just make a vote, 3 votes, and you're out.
Yeah, that's the unique part about the higher piece.
But like,
Yeah.
but
And I
happens
didn't
in
think of
public.
it that way before. That's actually a really good way to think about this. The standards are the job, that's the performance, the goals are the performance.
Yeah.
That would make it simple for you if you wanted to do it that way. And then what you have is the ISLIC standards as a resource for conversation, not necessarily a point system. It's just one way to simplify it, because I hear a desire for simplification.
But, and this is something that happened, recently in the city. The evaluations were not bad on one superintendent in that they did go through to fire the person. But that person came back with a lawsuit. Terms of discrimination and other things, but if the evaluations aren't kind of reflecting, I think, the evaluations are going, that's a great person, and then, 6 months later.
But in Arizona, and by our standards, like, that they can make that argument, and like, you clearly cannot fire someone for the civil rights pieces. But performance does not have to be a criteria for changing your mind, and we would like, I don't know if they're trying to like escape paying out the contract, but yeah.
Non-renewal of a contract is, you owe the superintendent nothing. Non-renewal is non-renewal.
Right.
You owe the superintendent nothing. An external explanation, nothing.
Yeah.
So when the contract's up, it's, up to you to renew or non-renew, period.
And years ago on the board, I remember having a conversation where we wanted to create the largest like pool possible by law for the performance pay for the superintendent. And then that's for me when conversations started about what is that performance pay for? Is it for doing the job, which is in the base pay? This is what I've heard. These are the conversations I've had. Or is it for the goal attainment? And what is that goal attainment? So for me, like, I think we try to max out on that and for my own votes, and I don't know if we've talked about that or even voted on it, but my ideas are the performance pay is for the goal attainment, and the stuff is the base pay.
Let's acknowledge then for now, if we can, that each of these is really important for your superintendent to be successful. And I want to capture the fact that each of these begins a little more wordy than this. I tried to simplify a little. Leader promotes success of all students by. Leader promotes the success of all students by. Leaders promote success of all students by. So all of these begin with leader promotes success of all students by. And then you get a lot of verbs and adjectives, because then there's the through and by and which. And I thought, what's the main point of each of these? So I did my best to pop what I thought was the main point of each. You want a superintendent who has a vision of learning. You should be getting feedback to me if you don't see that, feel it, smell it, hear it. If that's unclear, we should be talking about that a lot. And that's normal conversation feedback when we're in our one-on-ones, when we're doing quarterly conversations, just general, basic, I want to hear it from you. Yeah.
Okay.
Regularly. So advocating, nurturing, district culture, so what is the feeling about being a member of the Creighton family, or what is it that I know we're about? Or someone will say, what's it like to work in Creighton? They can answer, and you'll hear many of the same things. And especially as it relates to the instructional program, because it makes this about kids. Okay, I'm just going to pause on each one, even though the words are up here. I just want to make sure we take a minute. Management, when things are loose or when things are tight, it constantly requires attention. And sometimes you do need to back off and loosen up. And sometimes you do need to tighten it up and be clear and non-negotiables. And so, in terms of the organization, the operations, and the resources, that's the first audit, in a way, any new leader in any role would do, is walk into their department or walk into their school and walk into their district and say, okay, let me just get a sense of where's the money going, where are the people, how are we maximizing our people to accomplish this and this. So you can see the interdependence here. And also, of course, it's for safe, effective, and efficient learning environments. Collaborating with families, that really parallels nicely to the goals you're going to have anyway, because it's such hard work. It feels often like the work out of our control, but what is within our control is the effort. And that's to be sure that we're responding to needs, that we're mobilizing community resources. And that is a unique job in a way to frontline leaders like principals and superintendents. And I would say classroom teachers. Those are the lines. over here, this one almost feels silly that it would even be on here. And I know there's always arguments and evaluations about why would we even have this? You have the one back and forth on the teacher evaluations about do you include professionalism? It's like, well, of course you do. But then do you separate that as a behavior policy or do you include it as a measurable policy, component of the evaluation? I can imagine the state chiefs sitting around debating this and landing on keeping it in here. Because gosh, it doesn't matter if all these other things are good. If this isn't going right, you should fire the superintendent. This is a no-brainer, but it's not to be taken for granted and must be discussed. Because if I'm making deals with vendors, or I'm showing favoritism, or I'm inconsistent, I should be gone. Okay, and standard 6 is that messy part. I think that is really unique also to those line leaders. You know, what if there's a catastrophe? What if there's a sudden shift in our state legislature? As things change, how do we respond to the context of what's going on? This is the hardest part about leadership. This is the messiest one. This is the one I do want to have the highest level discussions on. I'm not sure I'm there yet as a novice superintendent. I'm working on it. But I would say this is the hardest work we all do together. And this might be where board self-evaluation comes into play. There might be a nice fit here because I know you wanted to put that in today's discussion. So this one's almost a hobby and fun, and we have to stay sharp on it, each of us, as we work on this together. Because context, gosh, if I miss something, you've got to come and say, did you know what's going on in the neighborhood? Or did you know what's happening down the street? Did you attend that one rally where the politicians changed the statute? So did you check with the attorney? The messy, hard part of the job lives here. But none of these are in isolation in my mind, and they are the base of the job. So
I have a question on 5.
yes, ma'am.
Does equity also fall under 5?
That's a great question. It's not in the document you have right now, but I would say it does.
I mean, you need to promote success of all students. I guess it might be.
Fairness, right?
Yeah, I love the question because equity is always such an interesting term, and it's not up here anywhere, is it?
No.
Not interesting. It's not in
It should
any.
be.
It should be. Yeah. That's a very good question.
I'm so sorry to hear.
You know, you could assume it under stewardship-ish.
And the word fairness.
Equitable culture.
Well, yeah, instructional equitable programs.
Yeah.
I think it might look different for different students.
Yeah, the word all. Yeah, all
Yeah.
students is in every phrase. But in this district, we have a real passion for equity. It's a shared passion we definitely have, and it's interesting it's not in here anywhere, is it?
Fascinating.
Isn't it?
It's in there, just not necessarily
assumed.
explicitly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like to assume it's out.
Right? You know what else is interesting that's not really vivid up here? Oh, it is here, it is a little bit. Communication.
Yeah.
And communication, I think, was your 4th goal with the past superintendent, if not the 3rd, but that is constant work. I mean, I've never been anywhere when someone said, this district is the best at communicating. I've never been in any organization where everybody's like, communication's going great, you know? So communication is a forever effort. Even
lead the way.
we can lead the way. So communication, equity might be some things we really want to hit out. All right, so we've kind of acknowledged where many things could live in the natural performance of, what you're paying to get. So the next question is, do we want to take a break?
No.
Wanna keep
Quick
moving?
question. So, is the break to go to the next piece here, or like, do you have a sense from the board on where you might go so you can come back with a proposal for this?
I would say at the end of the day I will, because I
Okay.
think we're going to weave so much that
Got
we
it.
might, as we go through beating up different topics and components, we might go, well, yeah, that lives there. Or I know Jean's going to talk to me about that every Tuesday,
Yeah.
Or, I'm gonna learn more
Okay.
about you as a combined board, but also your personal and individual passions, and that'll help shape our synthesis of what we want to do
Okay.
in the goal area.
Great.
Does that work for you?
I want to make sure by the end of the day that you're there. So that
We'll keep asking.
I will. Okay. I'd like to call a recess then at 9:42 until we reconvene.
Tomorrow is Sunday when you're gonna.
I didn't adjourn.
She wants to go hug her dog. Reconvene at 9:55. So nothing.
just for our record keeping, board member Annette stepped out and will announce for the record when she rejoins us.
I was talking with folks in the audience, and the word equitable was pointed out on page 17. I thought that was interesting, page 17 of the 27. And it's under indicator 2, under standard 5, which was interesting. But there was also a shared sense by the people I spoke with that it was embedded. So it doesn't mean we don't want to necessarily pull it out, though. So the equity and communication piece is one of the things we left hanging in the air from our review. Just kind of keep that in your head. And we're ready to transition now into a conversation about goals. But before we do, I think I heard a general head nodding agreement-ish that the standards reflect the basic nature of the job and that the goals reflect what might be about performance pay. Did I kind of get that? So that might be a way that we categorize whatever tool we create to simplify.
Yeah. It's also how well each standard is done.
We can write goals around those too.
Yeah.
Let's say that I have a weakness in one, and you want to say for the second year, you know, Donna, you really need to work on that particular piece. Can we make that a goal, a professional goal for you next year? We do it with teachers and principals all the time.
Yeah.
You know, sub little areas where you're like, you know, you're really great at checking for understanding. You're really great at anticipatory step, but that moving from guided practice to independent practice you're struggling with. Let's make that your goal next year. So you can do that with me too.
And you think that's for like laymen, like when teachers are getting that feedback, it's coming from coaches, other
Trained people.
experienced, trained educators and leaders in the field. And I don't want to diminish our own expertise, but we are laymen elected to this.
Yeah.
So although I would love to tell you, like, I think this and that, Dr. Lewis, you might say, yeah, that's cute, but I have an ED. So you know, I just think that's a careful boundary that we might want to consider not crossing, but I'm open to it.
I guess if Dr. Lewis is open enough to say, I need more experience, I need more work on this goal, so I would like to go too. My problem with evaluations throughout the years is, and this does more, but there's still interpretations, is the subjectivity versus objectivity of the evaluation by the board. And I've seen it happen too many times where somebody might have a problem with the superintendent, thus their scores are very low, even though the superintendent meets that goal. And the only thing that comes in that is totally objective is something, and I'm not saying we should keep it in, but the student achievement, that is totally objective. I'm not saying it should be, but we should have something that is totally objective, and there's no subjectivity brought in.
Well, we're not getting rid of the student achievement piece. We need to tweak it because of what's going on in
Right.
state.
We're going to be using it as a baseline, right, for that first. But yeah, that's, you know, that has no board input basically on that piece.
Well, the input is what are the goal areas?
Oh, but I
Like,
mean,
it could-
now,
We could say we're not even gonna look at reading. I think that'd be crazy, but to your point, Donna, like I think like the more like objective we make the document, like that's a good goal. But I think that inherent in all evaluations there is a certain degree of subjectivity, and I think that's part of to me it's sometimes frustration, but also the beauty of being with 5 independent, diverse evaluators. Some people you might think we might think like, oh, they're like, don't like the superintendent, they're scoring them down. Others might think, oh, they like the superintendent, they're scoring it up. So I don't know what we do in
Yeah.
terms of our own training for, maybe Dr. Lugo can point us in the right direction for inter-rater reliability. That's not right. But I think we should I think that there's always going to be a degree of subjectivity, so we should just acknowledge it. But I definitely like to put more objective criteria in there wherever we can.
I mean, you could have someone come on the board who just has an agenda, yeah, and I mean, what is there to stop them? It can be as objective as we think it can be, but they're still gonna do what they wanna do, and I think that is, you have a balance of four other people to balance that out.
Yeah. And if we propose the areas and superintendent wants to protect herself, right? Like the data will come directly from these external things where we, like the student achievement, like we've never really put in the numbers because we got it directly from ADE. I think that some of the things we care about are going to be hard, and that's okay.
So in our parking lot for today's discussion, we want to drill down on the student achievement piece, which we'll save a chunk of time for. Right now, we're going to moving forward on the goal conversation. We've put the ISLICs in a certain place for now. We're not sure how it will or will not weave back into whatever we're returning the document into. We need to talk about how the board comes to consensus for points. This is what I also just heard now. So what does that mean for a body to decide? What does a feedback look like formally? You know, the informal feedback can be super individualistic-ish, but somewhere in there, you're going to have to be a body that decides. And then the pay for performance piece clarification. So let's go to the goals section now. Is that all right with everybody? Okay. So here's what you had this most recent last year. You had 4 goals surrounding 1, teacher retention. There's been some discussion about what is and what isn't within your goal. Boy, can I document the heck out of the effort that's gone on. Boy, can I document the heck out of the results relative to other districts that you would be so happy and pleased with, especially under the leadership of Dr. Lugo. The enhancing the educational programs. This district has done amazing things to enhance the educational programs. And I'm going to go back to, bite your tongue, the West Ed days. So when you had to tighten up, it was a tight move. Did it all go well? Was there a good taste in everybody's mouth about it? Not totally. Did we need to loosen up? Yes. To what degree? With the new Common Core or the new college and career readiness standards? But that's being negotiated right now with the unknown of the new test. Or do you want to have a creative out of the box conversation about the signature school programs? And that seemed to be where you went in your document. So there was some development of that. Some people played with STEM. Some people really enhanced the foreign language immersion. There might be obviously some more work to do there. There's other principals out there eager and ready to go with some other signature programs. So you might want to keep that one as is. Strengthen district communication. That was the piece we said was it's an ever-growing effort. I'll go to my grave working on communication. I mean, it's an ever-growing effort. So I think there was a need there, and I think that should personally be a continued big rock, but we can play with the verbiage within. And then you talked about increasing family and community engagement. How could you not want that? I mean, these are really good goals. So this is the only one I heard you really mention that you might want to tweak. So as you play with this year coming up for the next 12, 18 months for November, how do we want to play with those? So we'll leave that blank for a minute. And then we'll come over here. You have the strategic planning draft in your folder. I want to say kudos to Eric Dupin for leading what was clearly a diverse team of people through an amazing process. I don't think we're totally in love with the vision statement. I think we have some processing to do with the beliefs or the values, I think we want to play with those a little bit as a body ourselves. The goals, though, were interestingly in both places, they were totally aligned with the 4 that you had over here. If you looked at that, I thought that was really well done, Eric. I mean that. So the audacious goals, which is a very popular phrase from Jim Collins. Did I say the right name? Yeah, from good to great. He calls them BHAGs. Do you know what that stands for? Yes, you do, Eric. Go ahead, Carl.
I don't want to take Eric's thunder.
No, Carl.
The big, hairy, audacious goals.
And we're grateful that you left the word hairy off, so thank you for that. They're just called audacious goals here. We call them AGS, not BHAGs, right? The audacious goals surround, and you have it in your, there, you've got it right there, Jean. Personal academic success for the kids as it relates to balancing the core subject areas with multiple disciplines. So what is really cool about this goal is it opens it up for more right brain creativity. It opens it up for cross-curricular integration and project-based learning. It opens it up for things that we don't typically think of when we think of a school day. It allows for just a lot more creativity. Eric, did I get that right?
You did.
Okay. I didn't sit through all of it, but I did read it and I think I got it. Global citizen. We have a giant head nod on wanting our kids ready to work with anybody in the world. And then it was simplified, because I'm sure there was hours of discussion on what that meant, by this group of 30 plus people, to, well, we want to, that'll look like we have kids who are literate in 2 languages. And my guess would be we're 65%, 70% there.
Yeah.
Ish.
How are we defining literate?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's that. I knew that. When I wrote it, I'm like, do I put the word literate or not? I don't have to put 2 languages.
I'll just say, like,
I almost
when
didn't write
taught
that.
neighboring district, our kids spoke Spanish, but they could not write.
No.
Right.
Spanish.
And it was sometimes Spanglish.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're stuck between the 2
Very
languages.
important.
Yeah, there's a
Completely
cultural
literate and
bridge.
research, so.
It's absolutely right.
But to,
But our
but
hands
the
are
goal
tied
is
with
to
that one.
become literate in 2 languages. That is
That's gonna be
audacious and
that's-
amazing.
That's an, yeah, that may be an AAG. Huh?
Well, that means
Audacious
we need to have classes on reading and writing in Spanish too.
Without breaking the law.
Well, and that would go into 6 over here.
Yes, it would, right? That's right, we're good without breaking the law, right? But it's a great goal. And it really supports the junior ambassador, growing it. Maybe it's not just about Spanish. You know, it could be about the German program, the Chinese Mandarin program development that we might want to pursue, Arabic. We have a lot of Arabic speaking families. Okay, so you got to get
It's also, what I really like about it is it's very unique. I don't think there's another district that has that as part of their goal.
Cave Creek.
Okay.
We could go to Cave Creek and look at their program. Osborne's working like crazy at it, and we might even partner with Osborne. If we were to get really creative, we could maybe do a look. I won't take your ADM if you won't take my ADM, but average daily membership.
Yeah.
You know.
Because Madison's got the fly program now. Does Madison have
It's
one?
a little
No, so yeah, it's different. It's not like a
50.
overarching, but it is an immersion program at the one school, and all students that attend that
That
school,
one school.
right, have half their day of instruction in English and the other half in Spanish. So it's specific to
Partial
just that one
immersion.
language. Yeah.
I have a question. Believe it or not, you two would be able to answer it. I know bilingual is illegal. To use the word even, we don't have bilingual classes. We have foreign immersion, other euphemisms and stuff like that. Is that law only for Spanish or for any
Any
language?
language.
Other than English?
Yeah, I will say though that there is a politician in California where the law, they also have the English only law. Everybody now there's an understanding that there wasn't 15 years ago. So there is a growing movement, and plus the ACLU has been working on this for a long time. But I feel the tides are turning here, and with people throwing around the word global citizen or the phrase global citizen all the time, you just look kind of closed-minded and silly and backwards if you're still advocating for English only.
In Arizona, I mean, they don't care if they're backward or silly.
True, but there is a, I think that there, maybe perhaps within the next 4 years or so, there could be a change.
Yeah, and I sat in on, at the National School Board Convention, I sat in on a session that actually addressed this. And it just, all the other, the states that were presenting had bilingual education still. So it was easier to get literacy in both languages for the students. So they were talking about that.
Is dual language
That's what I was.
illegal? Because we had a dual language program in Creighton and Mackin. And that was before the fly
It's not
program.
illegal, it only applies to kids who can't pass the.
You have to be
Or-
proficient in English
Right.
before you are
Parent
able
has
to
to
be in a
waive.
dual immersion classroom.
Right.
And nobody within the district office, within the school office, no teacher, nobody is allowed to instruct parents on how to fill out that float form. That's the rub, like we could all be like, hey, like you guys speak English at home, right? But they're not really allowed to do that. But there are districts who do that.
But, yeah.
I think. Like, and that's how they're able to get more of their Hispanic or other populations into that dual immersion program. But that's the only way that you're able to do it. You have to say that the first English or the first language spoken at home is.
So with the
English, right?
waiver,
We can't instruct parents, but they can fill it out on their
Oh, I
own, or
understand that.
third party
Can help.
can.
but you were saying if they had the waiver, then they were able to speak to them in their own language too.
It would be a dual language.
If they were in dual
Yeah.
language,
Students who
We don't have
have
to worry
not
about the how.
passed the.
That's-
Yeah,
that's-
yeah.
I was just
You were,
wondering.
you're trying to get a grip on how lofty is this goal, can we manage it?
Right.
And how how far can we go without breaking law? That's what prompted your question.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but we could, like, you mentioned German, you mentioned Arabic, not
Mandarin.
Farsi, and Mandarin. I think Osborne does immersion in that, don't they? I don't know, Chinese, I think it's Chinese immersion. But we could have a class, like I went through in high school, I had foreign language. It was so many times per week, I think it was daily, and things like that. We could have that. They wouldn't be literate in two languages, but they'd be aware of it. I mean, you do that for 2 years, you can understand a little bit. You can make up sentences, the verbs and things like that. I wouldn't be reading
Actually,
irritating the original.
But
I think kids who are already speaking Spanish at home but can't read or write it, if they were in a class like that, they would be literate. So I disagree.
Well, I'm
Those
talking
languages,
about,
Yeah.
not a
A
local
third
language.
language.
Yeah, it would be
A
third,
third.
like Mandarin or
German,
German,
yeah.
Farsi, whatever.
The third audacious goal that this group of hardworking individuals came up with was to really focus on the notion of thinking. And I think that was in response to the perhaps too linear of approach that has been used for the last decade and a half of classroom learning. Eric, is that gonna?
A lot of the discussion, and just to go back to the global citizenship, on that team, the strategic planning team, that goal produced by far the most discussion of any of them. So the track that you're all on in terms of conversation is right in line with the team's discussion. But the third goal around critical collaboration and innovation had to do with wanting to ensure that we're truly building kids who are critical and able thinkers, the kinds of people who can come up with the solutions to the problems we don't even
No, exist.
foresee,
Right.
and really being open to multiple modalities and multiple expressions of their learning.
And actually, if you guys wanted to tie it over here, this really aligns beautifully with what I would call the vision for learning. All of this really is the vision for learning. Now, it's not a snappy vision statement, but it is the vision for learning. And I heard your comment a while ago about slogan conversation versus a vision statement, but somehow would capture this. And it might be our mission statement instead. I just
Well, the
don't know.
mission statement, I think, is great.
Says
We're not
it.
talking about the vision right now. I think our transforming, innovating, achieving excellence, like that's a slogan. And
Right.
it's great, but it's
Not the vision.
To me, it's not a vision.
Right.
But
It's a state of mind almost, or a
it's what we do.
just do it, Nike, just do it.
It's what we do, right? But I think there's a place for it. I just think that there's room to create an inspiring vision that answers, when we do our mission well, this is what's true in the world.
Nice. Well, we'll work on that. We'll come up with a phrase. The other thing I wanted to point out that was a key word in this one was ownership. And I can well imagine the conversation when that was put in, because when we do learning to kids, it's very different than when kids explore and create learning themselves. And that's very much a part of the vision for learning, is the ownership role. I'm getting a head nod over there from Eric on that. Okay, and then choice and success is also part of ownership in a way. And we've gotten to the point where all kids will learn the same thing at the same pace, in the same grade, in the same way. Industrial approach to learning, because it's easier to test, versus the shift this group has invited, which is choice and success. And then it was blended with college and career readiness standards. So that was trying to be probably in line with what I think the Common Core is inviting us to do, which is to think at a deeper and broader level. Do you have some thoughts on that one, Eric? Go ahead.
The team discussed a lot the idea that we want to, if students aren't truly prepared, then when they leave us, they don't really have choice. That we don't want to create a system that produces a limited set of options, or students who can avail themselves of a limited set of options when they're done. With Creighton, we want them to really truly be able to look at the whole wide world of options and be able to pursue a path in any number of them.
And how would we know? Like for me, like career in college, like readiness, great. Like what does that look like promoting from 8th grade?
For a 13-year-old.
Well,
Right.
I think though, I think maybe one of the things that could be added to that is, you know, I know that Wilson is very good at tracking their students and seeing where they end up. You know, it's easy because they only have 2 schools, it's very small, but they track them through college and they see where they are going to college, what they're majoring in, like, are they still in a couple of years later? And I can't even imagine what that entails, but it would be nice to really have an understand, okay, this many of our Creighton kids are going to North's IB program. This many of our Creighton kids are going to Franklin Fire and Police. This many are going to, you know, that would be nice to kind of see. To I don't know how you do that with 9 different schools, but being able to,
Many times in the past.
because I mean, so
And
many.
I think it's something with computers, whereas we're not compatible to track like in Camelback and stuff like that. There's
It
no,
was perfect.
I'm not sure, but there's no centralized computer statewide.
My understanding is that ADE though didn't, I mean, they developed something, but it's only for administrators or, you know, like the administrative offices of school to be able to use those SACE numbers or whatever they're called.
The student identification numbers are not perfected yet, but it's darn best we got to track kids.
I think we're supposed to get some computers more statewide,
Mhm.
so, because.
It's easier to conceptualize than implement.
Right.
I'm getting a head nod over there from a former IT guy. Is that right? Jay, you want to comment on that?
Well, I haven't been involved for a while, but back when I was in the IT world, I sat in a lot of the ADE sessions about what their vision was and what they were going to do and how they were going to go about doing it. And the follow-up ones where they decided they were going to try to go about it a different way because the first way didn't work. So, but I think their challenges have been funding and you know, then of course all of the other legal things that they work around. So because to build a database system like that that's tracking those number of students, and as you well know from all the fun and games with ABM, they haven't even perfected tracking how many kids they should be paying us for.
Right.
I think that's really where the challenge has been, and I know it's something that they've been working on, and not really in the know on how close they are at this point, but I know one of the things that we've been doing the last 2 or 3 years as school districts is getting all of the course catalogs and the linking between students and teachers and the courses that are taught into that centralized system, and that's a precursor to be able to put the other pieces in there, and a lot of that had to do with race to the top. And in order for Arizona to participate in the grants that came with that, we had to build those systems because those were necessary criteria in order to participate. So.
Years ago, there was a system that we utilized. Suzanne did it with career readiness and stuff like that. It was a voluntary program for the students to go into and to do all this stuff, and kind of died out. So we were getting some numbers, but that was years and years ago. It was a program that the district fought. And,
Do you have any idea how this is?
I don't. that might be something that we look into, is how are they able to do that? But I remember in speaking with her, I went on a tour with Abbott, and she spoke about how they make it they commit to really tracking those kids and seeing where they end up. And part of the reason is because they want them to come back as tutors too, so they want to track the kids who are in college who can be Abbott tutors so that they can connect with them. But it's, broader, but that's one of the outcomes that they get.
So I thought what we do is just do a little dot exercise. This is where you kind of make yourself as an individual, put some dots on the things that interest you the most. So I thought I'd give you 3 dots for the standards over there because they may end up morphing over here. And 3 dots for the 8 goals that are up here, including if you see it being rewritten. So let me just kind of give you an example. So let's say I'm a board member and I really want to make sure Donna's clear on the vision of learning, and that's like my #1 thing. And boy, she's got to work with those families, that's where my other one's going to go. And then instructional enhancing program, that's going to go there. So those are my 3, right? So then I'm going to come over here, 3 and 3. So we have 6 total each. Okay, 6 total. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to think, well, boy, I said I wanted that instructional piece. I'm going to put it on enhanced instructional programs here, which actually goes with my personal interest in this multidisciplinary thing. So I'll put a sticker there, and the thinking thing. So I'll put my 3rd sticker there. So now I've got a theme going of the type of thing I want to see happen in the district. And we're just going to talk then from the dots to see how we want to blend goal development. Because your charge to me is to bring you 3 to 5 goals the next time we meet and say, from this conversation, here's what popped up for us as far as how you want to give me feedback this year.
What am I dots?
So 3 dots, 1 on each or any of the 6 standards for 3 total there, and 3 on one of the 8 here. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just what jumps off, even if we haven't defined it yet, just to get us started.
Where are we going to assume equity over there?
Yes, we're assuming equity lives under standard 5 for most, but it is assumed already by the informal conversations we had when you ran home. Which just informal.
It is
That that it's intended by all.
Okay.
And whatever pops off the page in there, we can write really clearly into the goal. We can blend it right in. But thank you for asking.
I'll pick it up. I saw
Please.
Sorry, they're little dots with all the off the chat. Really, they're tiny.
Oh, it's a little one.
We're so close. We're so well. Then you just have to rock it. Yeah, just come on, Aaron. All right, we'll take a little, take your time getting back to the chair. We won't take an official recess, but coffee and other things might be calling. Can you just
said I put it on her head.
You should have put it in her heart. I'm gonna draw a heart. That's funny. That's good. 1, 2. Oh, thank you, Bree. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we need to invest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. As long as you guys help me, I'm all right. Am I good with 2 here, guys?
Yep.
Look at that, then there's a 4. Interesting. Okay. Here. Our majority of our. Okay, let's take a look at what we got here. Okay. We like everything. Sure. Yeah, we like everything. That's why we have a 27-page document. The committee that was supposed to create a horse that created a camel, right? Okay, so just take a look at where the dots landed. Some of them are up by the number, some of them are down by the word, some of them are on the head of the figurine. Sorry, the dots are so little. It's all we had in the office yesterday when I thought to ask. So looking now at the goals, this is where
The third one, the third little star right here on the strategic plan.
Oh, right
For
there,
the C.
critical collaborative, it's next to the star.
Oh,
So there's
okay.
actually 5 there.
Okay.
I feel like also choice and success, college and career could go along with enhanced educational programs. So I feel like that actually has 3. I mean, that's my interpretation of.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing. That's
Okay,
exactly what we're
sorry.
doing. No, you're right on. So just numerically, not that that's, what are the top 4 things that we like? So clearly this one, we like this one. Right?
Fingers, yeah.
We like this one.
Yes.
We like this one. We like them all, but these are the ones that are kind of 3 and above. Is that fair to do? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's interesting, we did not stay here. Huh? Isn't that interesting?
Well, I think
This
what's
one's
interesting,
there
some of
too,
these
yeah.
things were, they're
The same.
represented in different places, and then I think these help get to some of these things,
Mm-hmm.
the way it was written at least.
Yeah. So it might in fact all still live here somehow. All right, Jeannie, go back to what you were trying to say when you were blending ideas.
No, that's it. I'm just saying that, this isn't necessarily a 1 and a 2, really. It's a 3 together. That's all.
Well, and as Carl pointed out, this increased family and community engagement lives right in standard 4, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's one of our starred areas, if you will. So that might still be one we want to choose.
Mhm.
Okay.
Is teacher retention in the standards at all? Would it be under number 2?
I'd like to ask the group to help respond to that. I have a couple of thoughts personally about where it lives.
I feel like it's number 2. And perhaps number 4.
If we went with culture, that feels really good to me.
What? Remember teacher
There's
retention?
been a
Yes.
complaint within this district, I think, for a very long time, and I think it kind of started maybe at the time that I was hired here, the feeling that the culture was no longer collaborative, that, voice of teachers was listened to less and less. So I know that comes up a lot. And I think it comes up less and less because I think we understood that and started addressing it, but I know it's been a concern now for the past several years.
And what I heard too is, I think retention was the symptom we were trying to treat, but when we do a root cause analysis, it definitely comes down to culture. There are things that we can and cannot control and might as well focus on what we can, which is make sure the folks who are with us when they're with us are at their best, and we're getting the best from them, and that means treating them like it's creating that type of culture.
Because it's not just the culture of Creighton District, it's now, it's the culture of our state and the climate of our state.
The nation.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it come under management, though?
teacher retention.
I'm just.
Yeah, that's where I was gonna go down. I
Yeah,
see it as
it's-
under resource management, yeah.
Yeah, you're,
Could live here.
working with the, resources and things like that.
And this,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And how, if you're an employee and you feel undervalued by your, direct supervisor or above that, and you feel totally devalued, you're not going to invest your energy into that company. But if you feel valued, then so it's kind of a management style.
Yeah, and also, your job as superintendent is to take a look at what's going on in the state, parse it out to your principals, and then a good principal won't, just inundate their teachers with all of these things that they have to do because they know that it would be too overwhelming,
so those might be some indicators once a goal is kind of established.
I mean, when we look at enhanced educational program, like to me, that's what all these things should lead toward.
So enhanced educational programs, global citizen, and the thinkers piece might be here as well as all of it.
Yeah, but for me, one of the indicators, which I didn't see, would be an enrollment, especially like residential enrollment. Definitely welcome outside the Creighton community for families to choose Creighton, but I think there's something about really getting Creighton families, more of them in our schools.
like the people who live across the street from all this stuff.
Right.
Actually go with all this.
It's interesting, I had an open house on Saturday night and people from the neighborhood came to my house, and a woman who doesn't have children but lives in the Creighton school district, just blurted out, public education is horrible and Creighton's horrible and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, where are you getting that from? But this is just it was all her thinking that she kept hearing, all this repeated. So I tried to break it down a bit, but I thought it was interesting that she doesn't have children. She's never gonna have children, but just that was the thing that's out there, and she talks to her neighbors, so she's on next week talking all the time. So it's important
Was
that,
she here in the last middle school crisis?
I don't think
'Cause
so.
I heard that at,
The most recent of 4 middle school crises?
yeah, I
That was
heard that
amazing.
door after door, knocking
Uh-huh.
that stuff.
And it was from a very specific demographic, was it not?
Sure.
Yeah, she's.
Some of the things there's nothing.
No,
If
I
you
don't
have
think she
good
was referring to
schools,
it, no, about that.
you consistently put out educated children, they will come.
So how do you, is
So
there
the
any,
challenge for me, and like my daughter will likely go to Biltmore, so I just want to put that out there, even though I live in the Monte Vista neighborhood, like I like the foreign language component. But my interactions in that community are interesting because there are neighbors that don't choose that school, and then there are a lot of folks from other districts who choose that school. So then there's a question of who is it primarily designed for? And I want it to be primarily designed for Creighton families. I live in Creighton community, but I'm not in the attendance boundaries, so I just want to acknowledge that. But I don't want pushy, like empowered, I don't know what language you want to use, families from Madison, Scottsdale pushing their weight here when the school's primary purpose is to serve Creighton neighbors. That's the point I'm making.
You probably have to educate those who are Creighton people and give everyone a voice. We're talking about equity, but a lot of people from certain areas, they feel the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and so they'll talk more, so you have to have a counterbalance.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that when we're putting up a good school, that I think there are two models, and I think good schools are good schools. but we're going to build a good school, and people will come to it, and I think that's a valid model, and to me, I call that the charter model. And I think other districts do that. Some of them do that well. There's also the community-driven, like what does our community want out of a school? And we can match those values in the design. I think that's how we actually got to where we're at with Biltmore. So anyway, I think yes, we should have great schools, they will come, but I think there is something to the process, and I'm not normally the process person. I definitely like the outcomes more, but I think there is something to the process of creating ownership and buy-in, and that's going to lead to enrollment.
One big part of making a good school.
I am happy to acknowledge that. Thanks.
I'm wondering too how we can change that myth that's out there that public education sucks. How that can be changed amongst the general public. I know we didn't have the Creighton communicator down there, but maybe that's something that marketing can help with, just so they start to understand. Hey, maybe look at this school is successful, or this school is doing this, or something. There's got to be a way.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting too in the comments we hear that people don't support our schools. This was like a reflection I had this week, because I definitely knocked on a lot of doors, and people like, these schools are horrible. But you know what? These are the same people who still voted for our override and gave us a little bit more money to do our work. They voted for a bond at like one of the worst possible times to ask for money, and we were able to build 2 schools, make enhancements across the district. So like sometimes the actions don't match the words, and I'm now a little more cognizant of that. But I think there is something to engaging our community, more than just marketing. This is how great we are. I think there is something about a relationship.
Invitations to the school.
We're like, and not just postcards, right? Because I see those sometimes, but I don't know. Like there is something to being an open type of campus. Feel welcome if you have kids or not. I don't know how you necessarily always create that. I will say I was brought into the Creighton district not as a parent or as a homeowner, but because I was in the business community. I was invited to be on a committee at school, and you can blame that process for me today.
The idea of Creighton itself as a whole being the neighborhood has come up recently. So it was not even subdivided by 9. What if it was the Creighton neighborhood? Just that's come up.
And I think for political viability, maybe Mr. Mann can share, but I think when it comes to bonds, overrides, all the things that they're not enhancements anymore, these are like, we need dollars to operate. When I knocked on doors in the Gateway community, everyone loved Gateway. They loved it, right? Not one person had anything negative to say about the school, but they did not believe me for a split second that this was part of Creighton District. They felt they were part of the Balts District. And so will they vote for our bond or override? I don't know. But I think if they were, I don't know how we tie it all together, but like all your Madison schools are Madison schools, and there's a brand. And in Kyrene, those are all Kyrene schools, and there's a brand. I think here we have a Papago brand, an Excellencia brand, BPA brand, and it's not a cohesive brand. So I think just for political viability, it's something critical.
You want to comment?
Yeah, I'm trying to hold back, but I'm struggling.
Get on that horse and ride.
Right, so when we look at a lot of, and I don't have the specific information for you, but when you look at research about how people feel about the school system and what you see happening in the state, and I apologize because I'm kind of passionate about this stuff, but nobody thinks their school's terrible typically. Like that's a very uncommon feeling, and so there's this sense of distance. So when the legislature, whoever else, the media that wants to bash schools says our schools are terrible, everyone nods their head and says yes, and they're all on board. Well, we have a problem with our schools. But if you ask them about their specific school, they're much more positive about it. So they'll say, well, my school's pretty good. You know, it's not like the state in general. My school's pretty good. When you ask them about their teachers, they will tell you how wonderful their teacher is. Their teacher is really their personal connection to the school. So I also see some synergy between the connection of the the district and the neighborhood and the families and the teachers, and there's probably a cross connect here for some of those culture pieces and our ability to make sure that we're getting the respect and the support for our teachers that we're looking for. So I don't know exactly what it is. It's kind of all moving around in my head right now, but I think we need to find ways to interweave all of that. And it's likely to be a transitional process where Gateway School, part of your Great Neighborhood Schools, Excellencia, part of your Great Neighborhood Schools, as a transition towards building that brand. Because as you pointed out, we already have that connection at the individual schools. Yeah. All of a sudden, just go around shouting, Great Neighborhood Schools. People go, what are you talking about? I'm closer to balls, or whatever. But if we can go ahead and start to make the connect and then transition it over. And I know both Donna and I at one time in the past had worked at Cave Creek, and there it was bizarre because you had Phoenix, Scottsdale, Cave Creek, unincorporated county. Those people had no idea that they were in the Cave Creek School District.
Nor did their police systems know which schools to go to.
Right, yeah,
Right.
exactly. So let us call all three and see who shows up, and then they're like duking it out in the parking lot who has jurisdiction. But that always troubled me there. And it is impressive, and for the last several years, what I've been doing at Madison has been trying to, that brand already existed, but trying to really enhance and build off of that. And I think there's a huge opportunity here, particularly as you start to talk about enhancing educational programs. I'd like to see something different than signature programs, because that's what everybody uses. We need something that's specifically Creighton to describe them, but it's still understood by people what they are. But when you look at that, now all of a sudden people are making choices within district to what program's right for their child. When you come back to that whole concept that it was up over here, where the child's part of that personal academic success. Well, you don't want them necessarily to go next door. If there's a program that's going to cause them to be successful, that's the next school over. But in order to be able to have them feel like they're still in their school, now that neighborhood has to get bigger in order to be able to encompass all of our children that we all serve together, so that way they can be in their right place, getting what they need, so that way they can be successful and become that citizen. So anyway, I'll shut up now because I've talked way too
I
long.
think it's going to be somewhat of a harder road to hoe with Creighton. I mean, Gateway, and that you have, and I've seen it when we tried to change boundaries just by a couple blocks, just because whatever. You have neighborhoods and the school's named after the neighborhood. We had it with Lafayette, which is now LCK, but that was the Lafayette neighborhood. Loma Linda, you live in that neighborhood, you go to that school. And when we were trying to move the boundary of LCK a little bit to the west, kids came in at board meetings and said, I'm a Loma Linda student, I always will be. They have allegiance to their schools, which we want to cultivate, which we want to continue, and not confuse in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit harder with the communities that are well established like that.
Yeah. What's fascinating is when we had the name change at Squaw Peak,
Yeah.
or for Squaw Peak, I got a lot of calls that people didn't like the name Fillmore Preparatory Academy, but they could live with, but they could live with if it was Creighton's BPA or Creighton's Fillmore Preparatory Academy, and like that actually, there's like an underground movement. It's still Creighton's BPA. I hear it all the time. I think like there are some bridges, but if we want to go that way, Mr. Mann will tell us how we get there.
Yeah. It'll be hard. It'll be hard, right?
All right, let's keep going on goal merging. So we didn't have a big one here. That's interesting to me. And it might be that it's subsumed under all the others. That's one way of seeing communication handled. I know that when it is subsumed and not explicit, sometimes it doesn't happen as well. So just to be aware of that. And then we had many dots, or 3 dots, over there under standard 4. So it kind of fits here, standard, that those two for me feel very similar. So if you would, of the conversation we've had so far, where we've starred a community, we've starred
social context and all that goes with social context. We've starred vision for learning. We've starred a district culture shift. We've started that we like the strategic planning goals all under educational enhanced programs. We just had a discussion really on marketing, but it was interesting that it was a marketing discussion because it was under the umbrella of enhanced educational programs. And I think they're hand in glove. I don't know that, it's not fake marketing with no substance. So you're saying a substantive marketing plan because you have a great educational program. So that might be, we put that in here, because I think enrollment was what sparked that conversation. Okay.
I just think if we use enrollment as a metric, which I think is a strong one, we should also, I feel very passionate that we are honoring Creighton families first and foremost. I definitely want to get more families from Chandler to choose Biltmore and Scottsdale. That's not your first priority. They can join our community, it's great, but we need to take care of number one.
But I think, Carl, that, having people come from other districts to choose us, that also makes people within our district realize, wow, we may actually have something good right here. And it didn't occur to me until we have all these, that's what's happening at Biltmore, I think.
With the little kids coming in?
Well, when you
I
have
just don't
people from
want to
other
at the
districts,
expense of.
no, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But if you have people from other districts leaving their district to come to us, I think it makes people perhaps who are leaving us now and going to other districts realize that things are changing. Yeah, yeah. So I don't think that's a bad thing, but I agree, not at the expense.
Right.
Yeah.
We've always had other, with, not the fly, but the
Traditional.
bilingual program in Creighton.
Right.
When
Oh, right.
When I went there to view the school, I was told that 2 children there, but their parents were lawyers, lived downtown
Right.
and dropped them
Right.
off. So some of our programs attract, yes.
Yeah, and again, with that, to bring that integration story back up again, that's what works. I mean, you have the squeaky wheel speaking for everyone.
I feel like what
And
Carl
maybe it's just for us to be aware as a board, right? Like, people, like, if I go to the Safeway right here at 32nd and Camelback, I have to be very careful. And then now I'm like starting to realize some people live in this community, and some people don't. And I want to be available to anyone who cares about our schools. But I just have a different sense of responsibility to our neighbors within the boundaries, because they also can be barking up their own governing board, and those trees that they're probably not getting as much response. I just want to, it's just a sensitive topic. I just forecasting that for the board. That's something I care about, and for Dr. Lewis as well.
All right, so take a stab at writing a goal statement. In fact, take a stab at writing 2. Your favorite 2 goals. And let's just start sharing out. And so one sticky per goal.
favorite 2 goals, meaning
Your favorite personal 2 goals. Of all the stars and, what's jumped off the page in this discussion. So in other words, you might write one about community member or family connectivity, because that came up high for us. You might write one about the vision for learning. You might write one about district culture. You might write one about the strategic plan blending of, or the actual goal might be the superintendent will, or the district will, or we as a governing board will embrace and enact the strategic plan. That's pretty broad, but it might be that simple. That might be a goal as written, or we'll modify the language of the strategic plan, and that's our next 6 months worth of work with community engagement. So you can be specific or broad. We're going to keep crafting, and we're going to take a lunch break in about. We have it on the calendar at 12, so we still have an hour. Are you guys okay to keep going?
Are you saying a 1-year goal, or a goal and it can be benchmarked later?
Yeah, that's a great
So
question.
if I said 10,000 students enrolled in Creighton, you might say, great, that's a
5-year
8-year
goal,
goal.
8-year goal.
I like this one, yeah.
8 years goes
But,
better. I like it.
I just,
What did I just do?
some stuff.
Just make it,
respond
just,
to.
right, yeah, just,
Okay.
because we're just gonna, because we're trying to take what's already done and already in place and make it this evaluation your tool to capture what you've said you value.
I changed it to 10,000. Don't be so aggressive.
Just like you. Your language doesn't have to be perfect, just get your basic idea. Don't go all adjective crazy. You're doing that, aren't you?
No,
Okay,
no, I
just
don't.
checking. Yes. Through the endurance of operations, through the collaboration of all community members. Coach. Bye, coach. Yes, ma'am. You can have 2. She's using adjective. She needs more sleeping. Just one adjective. Are we supposed to? We're gonna put them all on one blank and start cluster grouping. What Carl was doing, putting them under the areas where he.
Oh, okay. So should I do that?
No.
Mine are all over.
Yeah, no, we're gonna try to figure out how they go together, and we're gonna go through the next synthesis phase. That make sense?
And then I just,
I'm happy to give
Donna,
you
I just put, I tried to put the numbers of over here,
Right.
where they are over, I mean, just so you know.
We're gonna
Yeah,
regroup
okay.
them.
Okay.
Because we're gonna call them- That's great,
Okay.
that's great, because they're gonna end up in the same categories. Great.
Hi. Hi. There. Hi, Sarah. What'd you say, hon? I do, it's been beautiful, yeah. It's very lucky here.
You weren't able to bring me, were you?
No.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
They were so So funny.
Yes.
I haven't been in my for 3 years, so. And I'm on the urgency.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, 2 goals. I feel like I should put that on 2 separate stations.
Oh.
No, I put mine on the same, I said I feel like it should be on 2 separate.
Directing process.
Yes. You know.
It's, slower. No. The process is, you know, you get what you need to go. So what do you do? Okay, so the next question, this is important. It's hard work right now, so that's quite hard. What's this?
Let's not get too hard. My mind's
I
fine.
know, we're gonna get exhausted.
Well, besides the ownership, though, it's the, I still love that.
All right, and we're gonna.
Oh,
I
bigger
think
dots, right?
Favorite dots.
Big
Yay, look at
Nice.
you, thank you. Okay. All right, has everybody at the table got their goals up so far? One or two?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I meant that to the station, so they're adding on to one thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but like-
So before we go to the content of what's up there, we're just gonna pause real quickly and say, how's this working for you so far? And what do you wanna be sure we do that we don't have a day at the end going, we never got to, so. Here's what my intention is before lunch, is to process, your ideas for goal setting. And then we're gonna beat it up one more time, because there'll be pieces missing. Because you'll put your favorites up, but there's still 2 or 3 missing. So we'll go through that one more time, and then I'll have a solid framework, and I have homework to do. So I'll know from these next 2 phases of the exercise what to write as goals.
Great.
And then we'll visit it again at a board meeting in public, maybe September 1st. Does that feel right? I'll have to bring it back September 1st.
That would be brilliant.
And maybe just bring a whole new exhibit for you, written around the goals, and either keeping or not keeping the elements of the 32 indicators. However, we'll figure that in there today. And we'll process that today too.
Okay.
So as you just kind of hear where we are and what we're doing, is this going in the direction you want it to go? Is this the way you want it today to go? Jeannie?
Yeah, I didn't have a necessarily a very specific idea, but this is about right. This feels right.
Feels right?
Yes.
Yes? Are you getting things said you want said?
Yes.
Are you?
Yes.
Sometimes you're quiet. Not always. There you are. Okay. And then is this going the way you want it to go today?
How is it supposed to go?
Just exactly like it is.
It's going as designed. Is it
It's
working
going as
for you?
designed. Is it working for you? Yeah. Is it working for you, what we're doing?
Were we working, is this all part of the superintendent evaluation?
Yes, because what we're hoping to accomplish in the next 2 phases of the exercise is you guys are giving me direction to go do some homework and write goals, because my job is to come back with 3 to 5 goals for you up on which to evaluate my performance. Does that sound right? Okay, so that's why I want to beat this up a couple more times, because I don't want to forget what's not in there just because we talked about your favorites first. We want to make sure we also have a pretty well-rounded set of goals. How is this working for you?
It's fine. Maybe no one picks strengthens district communication because you're such a strong communicator.
Well, because you said you always communicate, you'll always be working on that, so.
I'll go to the grave working on that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
and I forget stuff all the time. I mean, I drop the ball just like anybody else. I mean, oh, I forgot to ask, or I didn't include the principals. Oh, I didn't meet with Annette this week, or Spanish, right? So there's always something. Or I didn't put it in the newsletter, or how did I not, just all those things you do. But yeah, it's a constant effort. How's this working for you though, Don? Okay.
So I appreciate getting to hear everyone's point of view and where we're all coming from, and finding like there is alignment. I think of this and like trying to synthesize this, especially to make it an easier tool. But I think like the details do matter. Like I even thought like, what if there's just one goal and that's increased enrollment? Because if we had that, that would mean likely parents are happy, kids are learning, staff is happy, right? But like without having this other conversation, I appreciate the space that we've created and everyone's contribution so far. So far so good.
Okay.
We'll see what you come back with.
Let's see what the content is. Yeah, because just like retention at the time felt like a really good goal. We want to retain teachers. And yet we learned as a learning organization that maybe it was more of a root cause thing. So do we work on the root cause or do we work on the goal of retention? And that's a funny, normal conversation. Might be the same thing with enrollment or quality of program. You know, the same kind of root cause, or is that within our control? So, you know, those will be conversations we'll keep having as we beat this next phase up. Okay, so my job now is to read to you what you wrote, or you got to help me clarify what you wrote, and then we're going to try to cluster it into 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 goals. Superintendent will increase community involvement measured by community feedback. Okay, so this is, do you have tape?
Yeah,
Is the blue? Can you show the blue? That's good. Yeah, just so I don't lose it. Okay, so we have a community involvement one. 10,000 students will be enrolled in the Creighton schools. All Creighton students are global citizens, literate in multiple languages, empowered to change the world politically, socially, and economically. I'll get that done by Thursday.
That's audacious, right?
I don't have anything to do on Thursday. So, the district, you want me to slow down? Yeah. Okay. The district will analyze community input and existing programs in Phoenix Union High School District and offer unique program at each campus. And the second one would be, what goes in tandem with? Are there 2?
There's 2.
Yeah, they're 2, yeah.
Okay. Develop a marketing plan that boosts both enrollment and retention of staff. So I want to give scissors. Yes, we did. Look at you. Here, I'm going to cut this one just so I can move to the other side. Because I see you aligning it with 1, 3, and 4 is what you did, Jeannie, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's that.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, that, you know, everything
Fits
certainly
together.
is related, yeah.
Right.
Enrollment has to do with all those different things.
Okay. The superintendent will submit their vision of learning and criteria or definitions of success for students.
I was going on the standard 1, but I found it somewhat ambiguous, so that's why I put that there.
Define it is what you're saying.
Define, so we know if we want to go with that.
Okay. Creighton is a district that's chosen and not a default. And I'm kind of thinking that goes over here too. This was we keep kind of heading in this direction. The Creighton School District will become known as the attractive district to work in or with. Look at that. We've got a little theme going, don't we?
I think because it's such an attractive community, you know, like these neighborhoods all throughout Creighton are just so beautiful, historic. They have so many other things going on culturally.
Right.
You know, we want to match that.
Okay. What's the cachet of Creighton? Prestige.
You know, when I graduated from college 25 years ago, I remember Wilson was the buzzword for everybody. And I remember that I looked at the pay scale of all the districts and they paid the highest. And then it became the buzzword. I mean, all the teachers wanted
The
to.
overall attraction.
And I had a lot of friends who were graduating as teachers and I'm like, go to Wilson. And they did, and they're still there. So, but it'd be nice if Creighton was like the buzzword. I mean, that was only because of their pay, but Wilson's got a lot of other things going for it too.
And overcoming being a failing district has been a long, kind of arduous process. And there's still, for some people, that perception that, oh, great, no, they're the failing district. I remember seeing them on the news, you know, like there are people who still feel that way.
Into like staff or like community?
I think community. I mean, that was the general feeling that, you know, this was 2012 when I was running and went door to door, you know, right? I would never feel
But it came out of a mistake with Elwood. Whereas,
Okay, so I kind of see a theme here. Tell me if you agree. This is the one that's about learning.
Wait, could you tell us what was the one that?
Oh, I missed it.
So there, Annette said 2, yeah.
I
So,
missed it, didn't I? Oh, is this one the one?
yeah.
Creighton School District will become a leader in equity of a well-rounded education for all students.
And then I define well-rounded.
Well-rounded equals all students receive all specials.
Culturally
Okay.
It's a good one.
So we've got some learning goals here. They might fit in two. We've got a marketing goal here, and it's choose Creighton or the cachet of Creighton or choose Creighton kind of goal. But it's talking about increasing enrollment because it's so attractive. It's about the attractive nature of it. This is analyze community input of existing programs with PUHSD and offer unique programs. That kind of lives here, but it also relates to community input, and this one is about community input. Okay, did I do that okay? Did I group them right? We got maybe a couple learning, a couple on attraction, and this is about community involvement. Is that right? Okay, so what's missing?
Can you read the community one again?
Yeah, it says superintendent will increase community involvement measured by community feedback.
Is that yours?
One thing sorry, go ahead, finish.
Yeah, I'm processing. I like the community piece is a very important one. I think we've been talking about that for 8 months, right? I think there's something about, and I don't know how it's measured, but it's not just the involvement, which I think that's the process too, but some measure of ownership. These are our schools. For example, when I get the override stuff for Creighton, like these are my schools, we're taking care of my schools, and as an education advocate, I get the same marketing from Phoenix, and like I don't feel that same ownership, and that doesn't mean I don't vote for those, but I don't feel that ownership. I don't feel a part of Phoenix Union. It was actually interesting to have Phoenix Union board members at the Monte Vista thing, and I saw how proud they were of this, and I'm like, I have undervalued that relationship. I have not felt a part of Phoenix Union, and it could be for a number of reasons. I have lived and worked in this area for 10 years, and families near me choose Arcadia, right? So to me, the involvement is the process too. I would love to see some measure of ownership. I don't know how to define that, but I like it. I like this area as a goal area for sure.
One idea with community is, I know Loma Linda has a neighborhood association. I don't know how many other neighborhoods in Creighton have neighborhood associations that meet monthly, bi-monthly, whatever. I know Homestead does.
I
So
know, there's
Homestead.
3 others.
So, but at the Loma Linda Neighborhood Association meeting, we never see anyone from Creighton there. You know, we don't, if we're right on Loma Linda school campus, you know, we don't see the principal come and say, hey, heads up, you know, this is school, this is also, you know, we don't. So I think there's a venue right there that meets once a month or once every other month or whatever
It
to
depends
jump
on
into.
something. But I know in Homestead, you're not allowed to mention anything political. I mentioned when the bond was going through, I was told not to say anything for or against it. And what I did, I got in trouble and I said, go out and vote, guys. And they jumped on me. And it's like, no, you don't jump on
I'm
me.
not
for
talking
time.
about political purposes, I'm just talking about,
But anything political for the schools or bonds or anything like that, you can't do it. Otherwise, something about their status,
true.
it goes. So
Well,
you
it
can't go and say,
Yeah.
I represent the board.
I
or
understand that,
part of
I'm
the
not
board."
talking about that, I'm just saying it'd be nice if someone from the school was there just to say, hey. You know,
Oh,
you're part of the
Andy
community.
is breakfast at the park. Andy is at Lumen Areas. The Builders Club from LCK.
Well, that's good, so they're doing it in Homestead, so maybe
Yeah.
reflecting that in other districts would be great,
Yeah.
and finding out if there's any.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
that's
the-
just
and
one
the
way.
superintendent- yeah, and yeah, I think it's I agree. I just want to make sure that, I think these are helpful for superintendent to propose how we get there. I do want to make sure like we're big picture, like honoring our role as setting like the deliverables, the outcomes, and the superintendent really owns the how we're gonna get there. But I think the conversation is definitely helpful.
Well, especially as it relates to community, guys, I need every ounce of you. You know, I need every ounce of your history, your knowledge, your relationships, just like the Monte Vista thing would never have been pulled off without that personal touch.
One other thing that's kind of embedded in mine also, I would like, you know, where it says choose Creighton, I also would like to see this be the district that teachers choose. You know, like I would love for this district to be like, you know what, you know, whether our pay, it's because of our pay or anything else, I would like for it to be like, this is a place where you have a voice, where it's a very collaborative culture, and where, you know, you are elevated to a position of leadership. You know, you're an educational leader. You know, so that was kind of embedded in mine, and it goes along, I think, with choose Creighton maybe in community, but I think that teacher aspect and you know, wanting to be the premier district where teachers are like, oh man, they have all these great programs, we get respected, there's great culture, you know, they have rally, they don't even have conversation, they're so cool, you know.
Yeah, I don't think we can become that destination district if we don't address both the staff and families.
Right, yeah.
But I appreciate like just calling it out explicitly.
So the policy reads from up with 3 to 5 goals, and maybe these 3 areas are so big. And so, I mean, this is the work we do, that we work on 3 seriously big rocks there. One big rock on learning, which is going to have 6,000 components in our real life.
Right.
But you're not going to want a 6,000 component evaluation. You're going to want to say, basically, we're going to have some lofty learning goals. We've got a group really working on it in the strategic plan. You seem to like a lot of that language. So we've got to weave in something that's about learning. You love the idea of community ownership, community engagement, community as partners choosing Creighton. So somewhere in there's a community piece, because we also have that disenfranchised families we haven't really talked about, but that fits there too. You know, so maybe there's a big rock there. And then there's the choose Creighton enrollment goal or attraction goal for both the teachers and the families. And we leave it that big-ish for now, and maybe we don't have to go another level. And maybe that's really the big 3. Is that enough?
Is anything just missing? I know, like, we used to
I
do
want to go home now. Are we done? I'm too. I get my cake.
Yeah, I mean, they're very broad.
They're very broad. Yeah. So after lunch we can narrow them a little bit, or we can do it now.
There's a little bit of narrowness in.
But they're areas, they're defined areas.
Yeah.
I think,
Well, they fit with the standards. They fit with your previous goals. They fit with the strategic plan. I'm seeing a pop come out of those 3 pieces. You know, so weaving in the standard, weaving in the strategic plan, and weaving in your previous goals to taking it up a notch. Now the question is, to what degree? Because if we do the 10,000 student goal, then we take the 18 years you mentioned. Oh, I'm sorry, 8.
you said 5 for 8.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about that 10,000 student goal. I mean, you could have that, we may want to word, you know, that differently. You could have the same problem with teacher retention. I mean, we don't want 10,000 kids here who aren't learning, who aren't successful when they leave, you know?
Well, we're gonna be the destination district where we take care of all kids. They learn here. Like, we meet their needs, and not all kids will learn the same way. So it's not like we only want, like, I'm not proposing we build a basis and we only like are attracting a specific clientele. And it was just a number. It's just an audacious number, right? We don't have capacity for 10,000 right now, but just think, like, we would have a lot more money to choose programs. Yeah, we've been at 8, so I just upped it a little to be audacious.
I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to have a wait.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like, that might take more than obviously 3 years. So year 1 develops plan, year 2 like increase to 7,000. I don't know what that projections might look like.
Yeah,
But-
they would have to take a look.
Yeah, but like I wouldn't expect we're gonna be there in a year. But that's where you would come back. And by the way, all these real actually, they could be indicators of the old thing, like even
Right.
the retention thing is,
Culture.
Here.
attraction, retention, like learning programs, that's number 2. The district communication goes into the retention piece and the choice. Increased family
They do.
engagement is community and choice. So they all,
And this helps with all of that.
it's a re-articulation of what we had, but in our own language in terms of areas, in goal areas, which is pretty fascinating.
I feel they're broad, they're big, that might be appropriate relative to policy leadership and policy governance. I want to be sure what I bring back to you is satisfactory, so I'll probably shoot you an email of where I am in my draft.
Mhm.
And you guys can give me some feedback along the way over the next few weeks, and I'll bring you another draft in September relative to the goals. There might be 3, there might be 4, there might be 5, but we're in the right ballpark. We good with that?
So this
You want to
is-
work more specific?
well, no, just a question, right?
Because the process is next. What do you think, Don?
What you just said about shooting us and getting back, what are we going to hit with,
Open meeting law?
Yeah.
When I email the whole board, as long as you're not emailing back each other,
right,
and you're just communicating back with me, which is still public information, so.
Yeah.
If people say, we would like to see what Donna wrote back to you, Donna Young wrote back to you, I go, here's what she wrote back. So you're still in a public conversation, but not with each other. So
Yeah.
you're not violating
I
public
just
law.
want
Are
to
they
make
doing
that
reply
clear.
all or just reply?
Do not
to
do
one?
reply all.
Well, and I think that you also need emails out.
It's always
where you can say
BCC.
reply, and
Yeah.
it'll be fine.
Either that or just
Yeah.
when we meet with you.
Or we just do it through with meeting with me, that works too.
Yeah, I don't want to.
You like that better, I can tell.
Well, it doesn't matter to me, I just want reply back.
Okay.
Email wise, but I
Sure.
just don't want the board to get in trouble.
Thank you for that. Hilda, any advice, parliamentary advice?
No, I mean, that's fine, I mean, as long as, the actual discussion is going to be held in an open meeting.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
just gonna compile,
The
their
notes.
thoughts, and then it'll be discussed in an open meeting.
Does that work for everybody?
Mhm.
Okay. Other thoughts on the goal part?
Yeah, so these are, if we're looking at the old exhibit, just the goals, we're gonna have a different conversation on student achievement?
That's next.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Thank you.
That is next. Okay, I don't think we need to go another round here, do you? Everybody okay?
Yeah.
Executive team? Thank you.
Executive team,
Wisdom, reflection, thumbs up?
I see the fact that you've got 3 big areas there, and within those big areas that your stickies keep going off. But within those big areas, you are going to be able to reach some consensus on the direction that you want to go. And you may come up with anywhere, you may have as many as 5 goals out of those 3 big areas there. As you start to drill down into what the specifics should be.
Great.
Which couldn't be build a plan.
All right, would you? Okay, we'll put the goals over on the side then, that we can refer back to them if we need to. Thank you, Hilda. All right, Susan, any insights from your historical observation of these conversations?
well, historically, the leadership group has a difficulty prioritizing because everything's important. So having 3 topics that can be narrowed down and refined to different departments and different schools is going to be very, very helpful to us. And the alignment to the strategic plan, the alignment to some of the things that we're already doing that just needs to be refined, I think will be very helpful.
I think they're awesome. What's really neat about the 3 is that not only is it narrowed down to 3 functional areas, and what's within those 3 are kind of neatly intertwined. They all connect into each other. So, and I think somebody mentioned earlier about, well, we don't want to just market programs. We want to have these stellar programs. It's kind of a cheat in a way because the program's so good that it markets itself to a degree. But when you look at things like enrollment, when you look at teacher retention, and root causes were brought up earlier, that allows us to drill down to what are the foundational pieces that can be put into place that really support all three of these goals. And because of that interconnectivity between them, I think there really are some key foundational pieces to be found in there. Your what they call your low-hanging fruit, like which ones can we get going right away on because they're the relatively easy ones to get started with. And then I like the concept of for some of them for there to be maybe planning, an extended, here's how this is gonna be developed over a period of time, because 5 years is not long. 8 years is maybe better. 18 sounds really good for 10,000 students. So 18, keep going with 18. We'll need a slogan around 18.
We're doing it on Thursday, JR is that.
I know.
Meeting on Thursday, so you guys know what our agenda is next executive team meeting. Just define these three.
If it was only going to take 5 to get to 8,000, then actually 2 shouldn't take another 13.
There's this thing called the tipping point, and it's just that 100th of a second for that athlete to win the world championship. We've got to get that extra 100. Yeah, exactly. After 10,000 hours, right?
10 years, all the kids that are in our school will be gone. That's a long time.
It is.
Another generation.
Okay, so just to pause on where we are in chunking the exhibit, you guys have looked at this piece right here, and we've decided on what will be the 3 to 5 major categories from the dot exercise and the writing exercise. We're not clear yet on which or if or both on section 3 or 4, but we have an awareness now of what those 6 are, and we're going to play with later what we want to do with, about, or keep those 32 indicators, or go for a simplified version, or a prioritized version, or an open-ended version, knowing that these are kind of an expectation of the normal job the student's supposed to do, and that the goals are going to be more about the pay-for-performance piece. Is that accurate? So we've morphed this a little bit, the summative, already, just by saying that. We've morphed the percentage, if you will, in a way.
We have to change it.
So I'm getting head nods from 2, 3 of you. So in other words, we're thinking somewhere here, this is an area for feedback. It might be right. It's still just 20%. Might be right. You see what I mean? So when we're talking about the 6 standards over there, you've got 20%, 1 in a 32 indicator place, and 1 in kind of a narrative place, the catch-all. This could be morphed into 1 section. What we could do is we could put each standard and say, what's your basic feedback on this area? But the indicators help you know how to give it, or is it too complex? We're back at standards now.
We were putting numbers on each of the indicators, and my sentiment was some of them were totally appropriate given the priorities of the district, and others were not, and it didn't feel appropriate to make an evaluation on something that's
numerical.
and on something that's not, I don't think, relative to the priorities.
So one of the things I've seen done is that instead of an indicator with a number value, you take the indicators as descriptors, and then you have a paragraph or an opportunity to comment on each of the 6 sections. So let's say, let me give you an example. The superintendent has not articulated a vision, doesn't know at all where the district is going, has not communicated one. We're all lost. We're torn between the old A standards and she's not communicating this. And you want to say this is ineffective. Let me tell you why. And then you use the indicators to describe why it's not working. Or the other way around. You ask anybody in this district who we are and where we're going and why, and all 100% of the people can tell you it's off the chart clarity. And let me tell you why, because now the indicators help you describe that. So you're basically then rating or providing feedback to the 6.
So instead of standard 1 and 6 different scores that get added up,
Stop the numerical part.
We would just do standard 1. There might be a summative.
And overall, do you want to do a rating per standard?
That's better than what he's saying. I mean, I'd rather rate standard 1
As a whole.
Rather than doing all 5.
Okay. But have the indicators available to help trigger your thoughts.
Right, that's fine, you know,
Yeah, that's like the rubric, right? Not like,
Yeah.
not precisely, but it's background information for us.
yeah, but,
But instead of like one, the vision, that's 8 points. The vision, that's another 8 points. Oh, who's different involved? 8, 8, 7, 7. There would just be one category.
correct, standard one.
So it would be more of a holistic rating of some sort of feedback. You know, what are the words? Commendable or
Meets expectation, meets improvement.
The way we do it is needs improvement, meets expectation, commendable, unsatisfactory or not observed, which is interesting. I mean, I could have rated the last one as not observed for most of the things.
so an overall rating for that one, but the indicators are more for talking points for you?
Yeah.
Not numbers. Is that what I'm
Right,
hearing head nod
yes.
on? Everybody good with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Does that help you? Help me?
It simplifies it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you, developed a vision among stakeholders. You know, but if you have a vision and you meet that standard, yeah.
One of the things we've used with kids and sometimes teachers in different districts I've worked in is the word not yet. Just a term. We've used not yet, something to consider. We're getting nervous. Yeah, just a thought. Okay, same thing here. You look at 2. Do you want to? You good with the over? So can we say philosophically we think that's the way to go across all 6?
Yeah, have the other things there, give us an idea of what we're rating you on,
Right.
but not rating you on each and every little one.
Okay, with indicators as a support, not as separate. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
And now I'm hearing that from 1 or 2. I don't know that I'm hearing that from everybody. So
Yes.
yes, for sure. Yes, for sure. What hesitations do you have? Really?
Okay, so let me.
Each of these subcategories are pretty specific.
But if you just took the 7, 7, 7, 8, 8, like what is 35, 36, 37 points, right? Out of 37 points, you can throw down 30, right? You know, and you can just say, all these look good. I didn't see culture and high expectations for self. I don't know. My question for you.
Another section which way we've done this, 1 to grow on, 1 to glow on, or something like that. You know? Remember those days, guys? What's your question?
I mean, is this part important or valuable to you in this evaluation?
You know what's interesting is I would want this as a 360 feedback from the district folks. Honestly. You know,
Okay.
I mean, one of the things I'd like to do is hear how the principals feel about this with me.
Yeah.
How do the teachers feel about this with me? How does the classified staff feel about this with me?
So the answer is yes.
It's good management, it's good leadership. It's where I can get feedback on how to improve.
Okay.
And can we get the feedback then from them?
Yeah.
To find out?
I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's a 360 approach.
Okay.
And then you have data from, you know, whether we do a dipstick or whether we do 100% or whether, you know, we'd have to work through the method. I can do that. But it would really help, you know, and we could even embed it in the self-evaluation. As the superintendent and board made clear, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So there's another thought, you know, that's not your training per se, but
But it's helpful.
somewhere we can put both in. We could put feedback in for you and me together, or you and me as separate bodies. Just a thought.
Okay.
As we move into the self-evaluation discussion later. What are you thinking, Amy? So we're on holistic rating per standard, indicators to help you make comments where strengths and weaknesses might be, and we like the idea of a 360 from staff on them.
And yes, and so would staff then actually go through these individual indicators and, you know, like if you were to do that, you know, would the principals be able to say, well, you know, professional development is great, however, you know, it's the culture and climate still aren't there, whatever, you know,
Right.
would they have an opportunity? since they're gonna be the ones who are working very closely with you to be able to go through just and to help us get a better understanding.
Well, what we could do, and I've turned to,
Optional comment.
yeah, what we could do is, I'll have staff create something that people will actually take. Because the other thing is we're not typically gonna get more than 7 minutes out of a max. So when there's like, oh no, another district survey. That's what happens. You know what I'm saying? And I'm getting head on, right, guys?
No.
What? Am I right? Is 7 minutes fair? Is that a good number? Would you give me 7 minutes to feedback?
I would definitely give you 7. Me personally, I will give you 20.
That's me.
Yeah, which means one for a different teacher.
Right? So, I don't know, James, what do you think?
I know that some people feel overwhelmed by surveys. That's a fair statement to make.
So in the feedback we've gotten over time about being overwhelmed by surveys, back to your question, Jeannie, is I don't know if 32 indicators would work for them, but we can maybe make it 9, or 12 or something. Does that feel right, guys? I'm making this up as I sit here. No perfect system yet, but we'll iron all that. Does that address your point?
Yeah, or you can have optional comments, what do you think is, the strength or the weakness? And people love to complain, most people, and they'll
Yeah.
put the weaknesses in.
Okay, so we'll come up with a method for you guys to get some 360. I want the 360 feedback because it does nothing but help us all.
Yep.
Even if it's like, oh yeah, we surveyed them at the wrong time because they were just right before spring break when they were exhausted and hadn't had spring break yet. And there's a science to windy survey people too, isn't there?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so we have now said we think we've got the 3 to 5 goals categories. I'm going to play with the verbiage on that. We're looking at simplifying these sections into a combined version of holistic grading, indicators available but not graded, and a place for you to comment on each of the 6 indicators. Do you see how much progress we've made? Do you feel good about this?
Yes.
Okay. Are you tired? You ready for lunch? Do we have to follow the agenda or can we go to lunch early?
We could go to lunch early, except Linda hasn't texted me that it's there yet, so.
Hang in there, Donna.
As soon as she does, I'll know it's
Recess.
We can
But we can
recess.
recess, so.
Okay, we're not starting the student achievement piece till after lunch. Okay, we're just not gonna go there. But I wanted to give you a sense of, we've morphed the point system a bit, right? We've kept the integrity of the ISLIC standards. We've kept the integrity of the goal. We are probably clueless on what to do here, but we're gonna work on it. That's really true.
On what, students?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, maybe Janie can answer too, but the teachers have to have in their evaluation part of student achievement, and you also.
And the principals.
Yeah, everyone does. It's a certain percentage.
Yeah, here it's what, 35?
33 to 50%.
In the state, yeah, but I think we're
35
35 here.
Individual, 10
What's our percentage?
school,
So,
55 observed.
so what's
So
the
if it-
minimum? I'm just wondering.
Susan's gonna give us, yeah.
The state requires 33 to 50%. In our district, the teacher's individual classroom is measured at 35, and then there's 10 of the student achievement data, and 10% is attributed to how the site does. So in
10% of that 30?
No, 10% in
On
addition
top
to
of, so it's a
the
total of 45%?
And that's why you see
That's a
section
lot.
1 up there.
Oh, that's why it's 45%.
Okay, but then.
Constant alignment.
So we have
The argument of growth versus achievement too. So
Yeah,
No,
but
no.
we have the option to change that percentage of the evaluation under student achievement
Yeah,
within the state laws.
yeah.
Okay.
And we're gonna have the same issue with teachers and principals across the district.
Yeah.
Everywhere across the state. There's not gonna be a perfect number right now, so we're gonna have to come up with a method for that.
Yeah, but we could,
So right now it stands at 45% of
everyone.
33 to 50. So there's wiggle room.
There is wiggle room.
We don't have to, what you mentioned, that's 30 33 to 50 is cumulative. So hypothetically, we could do 25 and 10 and fall within a state standard. Correct. Am I barking up the right tree or I'm sorry?
Say that again, Lucia.
Okay, hypothetically, we could take a teacher's and do it 25 for the classroom, 10% for the site, which would equal 35, and we'd still be within the law.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And the law, and the law is moot as far as I can see on the superintendent's evaluation.
Yeah,
But
it's principals and teachers.
Could we take even 10% classroom and 25% site and fall within the law?
Yes.
Okay,
You could
thank you.
And that's what happens for the B teachers?
Yeah.
More?
Well,
or
And
not?
the law requires individual classroom data to be at 33 to 55%. So
Okay.
I say yes, and there's different nuances depending on if you're an A teacher or a B teacher. Our B teachers, because we've been very progressive and our CMI&A department has developed some pre and post tests, they actually do have individual classroom data, where many school districts are using, B teachers are using the school's general assessments.
Okay. So in my experience, the approach that helped everyone palette the moving target was to use the word or with every option. In other words, whatever one behooved you the most, you could choose that one. So you may use this data, or 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 you may use this data to credit the teacher or the principal or whatever with the greatest opportunity to say, yay, progress was made. So, that's one of the political
So within the
approaches.
student achievement, you could say, or,
You can.
so you say 35%.
You can
or
use the Azella
10%.
results, or you can use the benchmarks, or you can use the school label, or you can use and that was very teacher friendly where I've been in the past.
The one thing that must be used, but there's not a percentage, that if state available, if there's state data available, it must be used, but it doesn't tell you how much.
Okay. And the psychometricians are coming out saying you don't use this data till, frankly, the third year. You can use it the second year. So we're in the first year of the data coming out, and it hasn't come out by our district yet. We're not getting it until what, October?
Now they're saying November.
Now they're saying November. So we're in a very difficult, the whole state is, this is not an emotional thing, it is what it is. It actually gives us the opportunity to have a really cool conversation about how do we want to measure student growth or academics here, if we're not going to be state test dependent. It could be an opportunity.
Yeah, one of the things I wrote down is that it's time to challenge state mandates in creative ways.
And this could be a real out of the box opportunity for us.
I like the order thing too.
All right, well, that's just kind of a philosophical
before
wrapping.
we get down there, we'll focus on yours.
Right.
And you can make recommendations.
I will, okay. Hilda, how's Linda doing?
She hasn't texted me, but we can go ahead and recess.
Okay.
We're ready.
I think we need to
We're ready.
stand up and then,
Yeah.
for our audience, we will resume back at, do we want to say 12:45, or is that fair?
Good now.
That way they can go to lunch somewhere nearby and have a relaxed opportunity.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, so are you okay with that as far as changing up the get out of here, get going? Move? Everybody okay?
Great. All
Okay.
right. We will recess now at 11:41 and resume at 12:45 p.m.
Check it.